Did Dave get you that stuff?
Hey, how's it going?
Quickly before we start, Marjorie, I just want to give you this from the planning board. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Joe? We're on the air.
It's actually exactly 6:30.
Is it exactly 6:30?
That clock is 5 minutes fast.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you keeping the timekeeper. If we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. Do we have any board comment? Okay, do we have any public comment? Do you want me to wait till the 6:35 and do 5 minutes of, or can I go into the 6:35?
It's on the agenda for 6:35.
Okay.
And you can do number 4.
Yeah, we could do number 4. The A&R for Slozak Family Trust on 545 Mass Ave. We were going to sign that this evening.
Yeah, we received a report from the Board of Health. There's a septic system on both properties, an old septic system, possibly cesspools. They weren't really sure. Under the 310 CMR, they need to submit a Title V inspection to prove that both properties conform to Title V currently and can place a replacement system. They haven't done so. My recommendation would be to deny based on this information. Clearly, there's no hold on resubmission of an A&R because they'd be submitting new information, but you won't meet again within the 21-day period for the constructive approval since it was filed 2 weeks ago. So you would need to meet next week, and I don't know that they would be submitting anything within that time period. I did speak to the surveyor, and he said that they would start working on that information.
Any questions?
Just real quick. So thanks a lot for that information. So it sounds like denial is what we're supposed to do in this scenario. Okay, gotcha.
Procedurally.
And we would state the reason for the denial, and there's nothing that holds them back from resubmitting. It's not like a special permit or something like that where there's the 2-year moratorium.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? There was one on the fees, if they resubmit, at that time, or
I mean,
at this
technically,
time?
they would be required to submit a new fee upon resubmittal. The board has the ability to waive any and all portions of their rules and regulations, so you could, by vote, choose to allow them to resubmit without paying an additional fee, because it's more or less a housekeeping issue.
How do people feel? I don't think to charge them again for a housekeeping, but I don't know how the other...
I don't see a reason why.
I don't see a reason to charge them again.
So I would like that, when they are ready to reapply and they work what they have to do.
I mean, you could vote now to do that, and I could include it in the letter of denial.
Okay.
So motion to make the denial and with the and approve a fee waiver on their subsequent resubmission.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you very much. Timekeepers at 6:35?
On the nose. Yes.
6:34 is close enough.
Okay, at 6:35, we have an A&R from Mahoney Trust Family. Steve Mastrangelo at 2630-34 Laurel Lane, James E. Gaffney Company. And who's going to speak? Hi. Sure, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Get the Mylar.
Hi, I'm Joanna.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi.
Jim Gaffney.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
I'll give you the
That's the
Mylar.
topographic plan there. And 7 copies.
Great.
I'm gonna roll it
You
up.
all have a copy.
Well, do you want, you all have the
have one.
same identical small one? Do you want a copy of the big one as well?
Small one's fine with me.
Matthew, you good?
I'm good.
So I think everybody's good? All right.
And then we have check for the filing fee.
Okay.
Planning board submission form.
Okay, yep, thank you.
7 copies of the A form.
Okay,
And the written notice to the town clerk, the pink.
thank you.
And Stephen Mastrangelo could not be here tonight, so we have a notarized form.
For you to-
giving myself and Tom Mulaney, Mrs. Mahoney's attorney, is
Okay.
here tonight.
Perfect.
And that gives both of us the
Authorization.
authorization. And this is the list of abutters.
Butters, okay.
And there are 3 different lists because there are 3 different
Parcels.
properties involved.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. So are you going to walk us through?
Well, yeah, so basically, right now, Mrs. Mahoney,
Can you grab the microphone? It'll go with you. It walks with you. Just don't trip over the wire.
the Mahoney Family Trust is actually Teresa Mahoney, who's right here with us tonight, and Fred Mastrangelo is Teresa's brother, who's here with us tonight also. Fred is Stephen's father. So basically, this is a family. This is basically I'll call it a family compound, if you will. It's been in the family for many, many years. The purpose of the A&R actually is to divide house number 30 and house number 34 are now legally located on one lot. And the purpose of this A&R plan is to subdivide the 2 houses. And also at the same time, when we did the survey, we found that this parcel over here, they call it the dog leg, was owned by Stephen. Okay, this is a non-building parcel. And when we did the survey, we found that there is an area here, which is shown as parcel A, that Mrs. Mahoney has always maintained this area for years and years. It's a garden area, it's a lawn area, plantings and so forth. And Teresa Mahoney always thought that she owned this land. And I said, well, while we're in the process of subdividing the 2 house lots, why don't we create a line here? And, you know, Stephen is willing to sell this parcel A, and that will go with house number 30. This existing building, number 26, is a non-buildable lot. There are a couple of outbuildings here, but there are no utilities. It has no frontage. It never had any frontage. This lot was created prior to zoning. So what we'd like to do is create this parcel A along with lot 1 and lot 2. Parcel A is going to be combined with lot 2 in order to make one undivided lot. And there is an existing driveway that comes in here and serves Stephen's lot up in here, and he will have a right-of-way, deeded right-of-way over Teresa's lot number 2 to access his land. There was an existing right-of-way, but it did not encompass the actual traveled way. So we're going to straighten that out at the same time, so that the right-of-way for Stephen will actually be over the existing driveway. We did receive some variances via the special permit that we received from the Board of Appeals. And I do have a note on the plan as to, it's right above the planning board box, as to the date of their granting of that special permit. Although the permit hasn't been recorded yet, hasn't gone through the 20-day appeal
period.
process and such. But Lot 2, which is where Teresa lives now, we're giving that 50 feet of frontage, which is the minimum standard according to state law. And the reason that we're doing this shape right here is so that all the utilities for House 34 and House 30 will be on their own lots. And also the fact that we can maintain the minimum, actually we're going to give more than the minimum, setbacks for house number 34, and that's why, again, this line is where it is and why we've necked it down a bit for the frontage of this lot. But and there were some issues with lot width, and those are all detailed in the notes, and those were the waivers basically that we got with the special permit. I don't know if you have any questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Matthew.
The special permit, what waivers did it grant?
Okay, let me see. Lot 1, which is the front house, Lot 1 required a lot area of 40,000 square feet, and we've provided 15,356. And the lot width through the building required 175, and we've provided 160. That's the variances for Lot 1. And the variances for Lot 2, the lot area required is 40,000 square feet. So we've provided the area for Lot 2 and Parcel A is 30,434 square feet. We also needed a variance for the lot width, which is required 100 feet, and we've provided 50. And the frontage required is 100, and we've provided 50.5. But what we tried to do is take a situation that was created prior to zoning. These two houses were built prior to zoning, and we tried to divide it in the best, in everybody's interest, with a minimum of non-conformance, and so that the utilities could all be on their separate lots. Mrs. Mahoney, now, like I say, she owns both these houses. Although she does receive two tax bills, separate tax bills for both houses, they do show on the assessor's map a division line across here between the two houses, but that division line was created by a life estate deed, which was given to Mrs. Mahoney's mother, who has since passed. So that life estate deed is no longer in force and effect. And so basically, that goes away, and that's the reason that these two houses are now on one lot.
Any other questions?
I do have another question.
Okay, perfect.
The parcel that's shown is parcel 44, the adjacent one that's on Pleasant Street, is that? Prospect Street.
Yeah, Prospect Street, 159 Prospect Street. This would be this area
That-
right in here. This parcel, yes, has frontage on Laurel and a lot of frontage on Prospect Street.
And that was subdivided prior to,
Yeah, I'm not sure when. That's the big stucco building. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah,
with
I'm
this
familiar.
area.
Yep.
Mr. Fish owns that now, but that has really nothing to do. He's in a butter to the property, but he has nothing to do with this actual survey that we did.
Well, I did happen to look up the reference plan, and it actually indicates that Lot 1, Lot 2, Parcel A, and the peninsula there were part of a lot that went all the way to Prospect Street,
Yes, that's correct.
and that was
is correct.
subdivided prior to zoning.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were quite a few little small, along with that, there was, you probably saw when you did your research, there were quite a number of small parcels, especially along this line, that were flip-flopped back and forth, which those are, that was prior to the current deeds.
Okay.
So
Very good.
the lines that you see on here are per the current deeds, except for the lines that we propose.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nathan?
I don't have any questions.
Damon? Ken? Good?
I don't have any further, I don't have any questions, no.
Okay, so, and I'm good. Any questions from the public? Well, Ron, okay. So what will happen is, we'll take this, we'll pass it out to all the other boards, and they'll give us their feedback usually within our next meeting, which is January 12th. So we'll take all that feedback, and as long as everything comes back from all the other boards, say okay, we'll sign the plan at that meeting.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Well, thanks for coming in.
I'm just going to make one more point. That,
Sure, can you just come up to the mic so the people at home?
I just wanted to mention that both of the existing houses are on town sewer.
Okay, thank you. And we'll, have good holidays.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Minutes approval of 12. Thank you, you have great holidays now. Thanks for coming in. Bye, Tom. Okay, we have minutes approval of 12/8/14. I would
Motion.
accept the motion.
Motion to approve the minutes at 12/8/2014?
Any discussion? They were emailed to us. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Committee reports, MRPC, we have not met. December 4th was our December meeting, so I have nothing to report. Capital Planning, we met last Tuesday. We did a tour of Turkey Hill Middle School, and they just showed us some of the roofing and things they were looking for asbestos, new flooring, moving the district office from the TC Passio over to the Turkey Hill Middle School. So we did a tour of the school, spent some time over there, and we meet tomorrow evening. Yeah, I didn't want any meetings the week of Christmas, and we're meeting tomorrow to start to deliberate and put them in order of priority. So that'll be tomorrow evening. School Building Committee, Nathan.
Okay, so I attended a meeting, I think it was the last week or the week before. I had missed the previous meeting. So I found out a couple things worth mentioning there. One is the parking lot that had been, they were considering at some point looking at building a parking lot. I guess it would be the northwest part of the, kind of north of the Passios building, to sort of offset what they thought they might lose if and when they carve out the Passios parcel from the building parcel. Because there's,
Okay.
in the plans we've been looking at with the school, there's like three kind of lots. There've been three lots. There's been like the existing high school parking, student parking by the tennis courts, and there was the new kind of teacher parking and other related parking up by the new entrance to Oak Ave. And there was some other parking that I don't know if it was included in the official totals or not, but it was included in some of the maps, and it was the parking next to the Passios, the side of it that's close to the high school there. And there was, all the discussion around creating a boundary to divide out that parcel and what would happen to that parking. So for a while they were entertaining the idea of putting a parking lot in kind of north of the Passios building that would be part of the high school, but would be, so it would be included in the high school lot when that separation was done. So I guess from what I learned is that's not going on right now. So that's just a little update. I don't know if it's good or bad or otherwise, just a little report on that.
Were those numbers in the parking numbers when they proposed the plan? No?
Now, that was the area of the lot that was originally, they thought it was wetlands, and then they went out and they resurveyed the area and they determined it was not wetlands, and so it was an opportunity to expand parking into that area.
Oh, okay.
So they'd be able to do that. But did they give an update on what's going on with determining where the line is going to be? Because I was very, Paula Bertram said something to me the other night when I was talking to her, and she mentioned that you said they weren't planning on doing that until they actually opened the new school. And I'm like, no, you must have misheard them. So I went back and I re-listened to the meeting, and you did actually say that. So I was curious. I thought we were looking to get that line defined much sooner than then, so that we could potentially have a building reuse capability with that building.
And maybe I wasn't clear, or maybe I misstated, but they won't actually be creating the parcel. The actual A&R and creation of the parcel and the disposition of Passios won't happen until the school is open and operating. The conceptual line, which would be sort of the sketch of this is kind of generally what we're going to do. My understanding, and Loxie was at the selectmen's meeting last week, and she said they're currently working on that sketch. I wasn't sure what their timeline was, whether it would be December, January, February, but they are currently working to get a meeting together to come up with the conceptual line. The actual parcel won't be created until the school is open, because they can't say Passios is surplus and vote to cease use of it until they have the new school and they know it's operational.
So they're going to continue using Passios until the new school is operational?
I'm not going to speak to the operation, but because it holds the offices and those things, my understanding is that they're not actually creating the parcel until they have the keys in hand in case there is a need for reuse within the school system. And again, this is all something that I can clarify further with the superintendent, but my general understanding is that Passios won't be declared surplus until the new school is operational. And they will come up with a sketch of this is the parcel for planning and reuse consideration purposes, but I don't believe that until they have the keys to the new school that parcel will exist.
Okay, I had heard that they were not going to be using it anymore, that they were actually going to move the office.
And I can again further clarify that for the planning board, but I know they're working on where the line will be.
Yeah.
But the actual coming to the board with an A&R, declaring the property surplus, my understanding was that doesn't happen until they have the new school.
Because they're worried about space needs?
I'm not going to, I don't know what their thinking is.
What their motive
But
is.
in general, if you're going to do something like declare it surplus, you have to take the vote that it's surplus, and once you do that, you're not using it any longer.
I understand they need it because the heat for the high school, which they need until the other building is open, comes from the Passios building.
So then that would probably be a very big reason why they wouldn't abandon it. Because once it becomes surplus, and again, I haven't researched this in Lunenburg, but in most communities, the building is owned by the town.
Yeah.
The school has control of it. Once they declare it surplus, they cease to have control of it and it reverts back to the town.
Okay.
So there's operational and budgetary concerns wrapped up in that, and it's usually, declaring something surplus essentially shuts it down.
So let me ask the silly question. Is there a reason they can't divide it and just continue to own the property?
Is there a reason they can't do that? No.
Can't say where the line is.
And again, I'm going to defer these questions to the superintendent. If you would like me to follow up with her, I can.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
I have a question. Since we've had so many curiosities and questions and misunderstandings about this, could we ask them to come to a meeting, or Could we go to one of theirs, or, I mean, can we actually have some face-to-face communications with the?
I would second
And
that
I think it would
request.
be, I think it would be a meeting between us, the Board of Selectmen, and the school committee, because as the planning board, but we can't really control the building and no, we really need you to pick that line as a planning board. So I think if we try to book a workshop with the three groups, I think it might be more beneficial and time-saving, because if the selectmen watch it, and then they're going to want to participate and have had feedback from our meeting, so I think if we invite all three.
I would like to have that meeting, because it's been months and months where we've had this question and we've gotten nowhere. And
I agree.
I question what role the planning board has in that meeting. This sounds more like a school committee building reuse.
Well, they said where they
Selectmen.
draw the line depends on how we zone it, so.
Well, and that's a
They brought
conversation.
us into it.
And that's a conversation that I've had with the superintendent. The question was, what are the setbacks and how does that affect our division?
Clarified that already.
That's been clarified, so my understanding was they were moving forward with the concept of where the line would be, with the final division happening upon,
Yeah,
the
I just saw
abandonment
that
of
as a
school.
help me, help you kind of thing.
Sure.
where They said our decision has some implication, then how can we help you?
Right.
So, I don't know.
and I mean, I can speak with the superintendent and see if we can coordinate that with the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. I would, again, suggest that the Building Reuse Committee be involved, because
Yeah.
they're the ones who ultimately will need the information.
Yes.
I mean, everybody needs it, but they're the sort of, they have something tangible to do with it.
Yeah, and I think it helps us in our drive of economic development and what we can do with the building, with the land on the side. So I think if we could host a workshop with, and invite the reuse committee as well. I think the more minds, the better. So have the reuse, the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and the planning board. And we
It's
can,
also going to be, it's going to be continuously raised as a question when we start talking about the village district and-
Right.
and socializing that.
Mhm.
And if we don't have any answers, we're like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen
Right.
to it because it's not.
well, and people hear glimpses, like the library now has asked us to come because they're thinking that we might change things at Memorial Drive, and that's going to impact them. So it's really, as people hear bits and pieces, so I think if we all came together and kind of,
It's just kind of a matter of lining up the ducks.
But I also think, though, that whatever happens with the village district, we don't know what's going to happen with that parcel. Because even if we know where the line is, what the RFP looks like, we can shape, but that depends on someone actually purchasing it and using it and being able to execute what's in the RFP. I mean, for a parcel that large, there's so much up in the air that, sure, we can say we would like these things, and I think the board has sort of already expressed some of those ideas in the discussion of the village district. But if somebody comes and says, what's that parcel going to look like in 10 years, nobody can say. Even if we had the village district done and everybody was like, this is the best village district bylaw we've ever seen, and it's going to create this and that, the money might not be there, the desire might not be there, and it may be an open field in 10 years, just based on development patterns. We can try our best to lay things out in a way that will foster the kind of development that we want. But, that's sort of the crux of planning. We can kind of come up with our best ideas of what we'd like to see, how we'd like to see it shaped, and that's really what the bylaw does. But people's execution of it is based on the market and finances and, who's willing to take the risk and spend that money. And I know you all understand this in general, but I feel the need to restate it for everybody, because as much as we try to lay out what is going to happen, everything is always in play and everything's always sort of moving.
Yeah, well, I guess it's more of an issue for building reuse. But, I mean, you could certainly divide that to make it,
Yeah,
admirable.
and attractive, yes. I totally agree.
Divide it to make it virtually worthless. So, I guess it's building reuse that has the real vested interest, but if it has capabilities that we can envision as part of how we would see it be reused as part of the village district, I think that just helps our story. But you're right, it's ultimately the building reuse committee
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
has the greater concern for
And again, yeah,
how
as
that actually gets organized.
as a member of Building Reuse Committee, yeah, I think is a big factor for us. And just from a whole town perspective, the school pitched the new high school to us with the understanding that the Passios would be accessed and it would be off the town bank rules. And we're talking a lot about capital planning, which building can get fixed up, what's gonna move where, and hanging it out there for another year and a half, 2 years, so that school's done, not having an idea of what we're doing with that property just seems like bad practice.
Well, and I don't think that, again, I don't think that you have to have no idea what you're doing with the property, but the ability to actually do it has to wait that long until it's actually a surplus property.
Yeah, but I would like to be able to plan.
Sure. And I think that once the line is conceptualized, you can start to do that.
Just for clarity, I think you just said that it could be subdivided and still remain in their ownership,
It could.
so that kind of is moot. We could get the line and they could still have it. It could still be in the
Sure.
planning process for building reuse.
Yes, but I mean, even without the line, if you know in general where it will be, you can plan for building reuse, but you can't actually issue an RFP until it's declared surplus.
Schematics I've seen for the property line, they go through the building. So if they go through the building or they don't go through the building, it makes quite a bit of difference about a building reuse, because if it goes through the building, then you're gonna have to demolish up to the setback, which, whatever it is, versus if it's not in through the building and the setback is 0, maybe the structure could stay intact. I mean, it does make differences. It does have an impact on the building reuse's thought process. And to speak more about bad practice, the questions and the answers that come back and forth between boards, are they official? Are they on memo? I mean, they've asked us questions and we've responded, and they've gotten the answer. And we've asked questions and we've gotten kind of conflicting responses.
What questions? I have not been involved in any questions being asked of this board in the past 2 months, other than the meeting that I had with the superintendent, and that was a face-to-face meeting.
I think pretty much every meeting we've asked about the line.
It's been a discussion. The board has not formally requested information. It has been brought up that this committee or this board spoke about it. There's been no formal request from the planning board. And again, I think it falls into the building reuse arena more so than the planning board. The planning board would be the approving authority on the A&R and is creating the village district, but where that line falls should have no effect on the village district. The village district may have an effect on where the line falls, but the district is essentially a document that shows what the board would like, what the board is proposing would be most beneficial for the town center, for town meeting to look at and vote on. So if you would like a formal request to go to the school committee about the creation of the line, the intent of the line, I can do that, but that was not my understanding of the questions. My understanding was they were a general discussion amongst the board and less of a formal request for information.
I would like a formal request myself, because I'm tired of it, really. I mean, it's not anyone here's fault, but we've been going in circles for a long time, and just, I mean, I don't want to keep beating this into the ground here, but I see it as they made a promise to the town that that's going to be excised. I want to make sure there's no planning reason why that can't be done or executed in a timely manner, and we can talk about moving forward and what we're going to do with that building.
I'm sorry, and I need clarity, because not talking RFP, but just putting the line to say, because they own both buildings, well, the town owns both buildings, but they're under the school committee. So either way, if they put the line here or here, they still own the two buildings. They're in there, they own the buildings. When they go out for RFP, that's when there'll be surplus. But currently, they can draw the line as to where TC Passio is going to be and where the high school is.
Yes, they can.
Okay. So I think we need to have a meeting, as we requested
Or
from the
just a
beginning.
formal request, like has been suggested.
Well,
Just say,
but I would like...
Can you come with the line?
Right, well, and I think it would be a good conversation for everybody to be a part of, because people might have different thoughts of where they want the line, and it might help the school committee create that line.
And I guess I would say that it was stated the school committee is planning to work on it and has it scheduled to be on an agenda. And I would suggest that since they are the ones creating the line, perhaps those interested may want to go to the school committee meeting and partake in their discussion of it. I mean, it can also be a workshop, but I think that if the discussion of the line and where it will be is already scheduled, that may be an easier place to have the discussion.
Do we know that date?
No, but I can get that date and send it to you.
Excellent, thank you.
That'd be great.
And I
Sorry, Nathan, we derailed you a little bit.
Oh, no problem. Joanna, anything else on that topic?
No, I really would like to have a workshop because we've been talking about this for 4 months. So, and it's what I've asked for. So I would really just like to have a workshop with those 4 groups so we can get the answers done for the reuse for everybody and just move forward off of that topic.
I think that would be helpful.
I do too. All right, open space ad hoc
Oh,
committee.
yeah, so, sorry, it
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
totally done.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, that's okay. So just what was discussed at the last meeting was, and I'm sorry, I am not, don't remember exactly what the technical phase, they're at a phase of the project, basically, where they've bid out a lot of the school project, if not all of it, a really big chunk of it, and they've got more accurate estimates based on the bids and contracts, the bids they've received and the contracts they've made and whatnot. And so they're at a stage where they take those new estimates based on those firmer numbers back to the MSBA. And overall, it's, look positive overall. Overall, I would say I think it came in somewhat below the initial estimate, which is happy and unusual, It wasn't like so low that it was like something was weird or off, but it came in definitely at the better range of the spectrum. So they are looking to take that to the MSBA, and there may even be an opportunity as they're doing that to reincorporate some of the value engineered items back into the project based on budget and whatnot that they feel are important to the project. And I think the school building committee's looking at a couple areas like that. Is a factor at total cost. We're not talking about a big amount. That's the update.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? All right, then we have open space, Nathan.
Is open space meeting right now? I've not heard from.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I knew they had the one thing on the Pellin property,
Yep.
but they made their recommendation. They didn't meet about it. It was kind of no, doesn't
Okay.
meet their criteria.
Is there a meeting January 7th or something?
Yeah, that's with us. Yep.
Yeah, there was notices and communications, and I believe that the Conservation Commission just appointed their 2 representatives. So I think that there's now
A committee.
a committee.
Okay.
So I think that may have been some of the holdup as they were waiting to seat the new members from Conservation.
Do we know who they were?
I believe... Okay, so I believe it was Thomas Bertram as well.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't remember the other.
All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first one.
His last name is Dwyer.
Dwyer?
Mr. Dwyer? Okay. Anything else on building reuse?
No. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, open space.
No,
We were
nothing on open space.
Now we're on building reuse. Damon.
Haven't met since our last meeting.
Can I bring something to you? To bring to just a question I have?
Absolutely.
And I don't even know if this is in their privy, and maybe you can coach me on that. Do you know when you're meeting again?
Beginning of January.
January, okay. I'm on the capital plan, and one of the things that they're looking at is the school committee, the school district, was at Brooks House and moved from Brooks House 2 years ago to Turkey Hill. I'm sorry, TC Passio. So they're currently at TC Passio.
Yep.
So now they're looking for funding again from Capital Plan to move from TC Passio to Turkey Hill Middle School.
Okay.
And I'm kind of looking at, really, this is just my personal, not planning board. I don't really see that the district might work well in a school with, kids walking in and out of the halls, parents having issues, private issues with the district, and they're walking in the hallway with the kids. Something happened with their child, they're escorting them. Most of the communities, their district is off-site, not in a school, not in a physical school itself.
Okay.
And I know with the reuse, we have multiple open buildings, so I didn't know if there was any thought of where we could put the school district within a town building that wasn't in a school. But again, I don't know if that's even the town, right, or the school can decide where they want to go, because that's kind of that.
I mean, I think it's kind of a mixed issue. I think if building reuse is going to look at all of the town buildings, they could certainly contact the school department and find out if they felt that their offices would be better served elsewhere. I'm not privy to the decision-making process to move to Turkey Hill. I imagine it has to do with we're moving out of Passios in general. We have space at Turkey Hill. That's kind of makes logical sense in the short term. I don't know if, expanding town hall, relocating town hall, however that's going to work, would be able to incorporate the school district, and if that's something that they would be interested in. That, I mean, that might be a reasonable question for building reuse to ask, based so that they can do a reasonable
I
study.
seem to remember we did ask that question way back when the committee first formed, and we were assembling our purview, when we were told they were going to handle that internally, but unless their feelings have changed since then. It's not an active part of what we're analyzing.
Well, and it just costs us money every time we move them from one building to another building, and every, 2 years, we're paying $40,000, $50,000 to move them from A to B, and really, we could have just built a new little building for the district and called it a good day. So that's all I'm.
I understand the genesis of the question. I just don't.
Yeah, I can ask the question next meeting.
Yeah, if we can kind of just put that on a flag at some point. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anything else on building reuse?
No.
MJTC, Ken.
The next meeting is still January 21st.
Okay. And Matthew, agricultural.
Yes, they had their meeting last Thursday, and they hosted a discussion about a public market. It was their greatest turnout yet in the last
Good.
in the 1.5 years, 2 years. Some progress was made, and it was a very good meeting.
So what was the outcome on the public market?
There was no outcome. It was the first meeting of the discussion.
Okay. Were people excited about the public?
Yes,
Good.
there was. I don't believe there was any negative feedback.
Nope.
Damon was there. Yeah.
Pretty positive, yeah.
Yep,
Good.
quite positive.
Good. Okay. New business, status reports. Whitetail Crossing.
This matter is in front of the Board of Selectmen for a layout hearing. I believe it is scheduled for January 13th. That's the right date, but under Mass General Law, the Planning Board is required to submit a report to the Board of Selectmen as part of the layout hearing process, stating their issues or concerns that may exist with the road and right-of-way, and whether or not they feel that the Board of Selectmen is in a place to move forward with approving the layout. So it's onto the board for your discussion of any potential issues and whether or not you feel that there's a reason to hold up laying out Whitetail Crossing.
Laying out or accepting?
Laying out.
Laying out.
Laying out is the first process. The Board of Selectmen accepts the layout, which is the meets and bounds of the right-of-way. They say, yep, we accept this, and then, once it's laid out, it becomes a warrant on the town meeting, and the town meeting is the actual body who accepts the road.
And that would match the existing road that's been installed. I
Correct,
presume,
yeah.
right?
that peer review checked off and said, yep, it's all
Correct.
set. Jack checked off.
That's
said
correct.
The director of
That's correct.
highway said it's all
Yes.
set.
And the state that we're in now is there's all approvals for the stormwater management there with the runoff and so forth that we've had challenges with in the past. That's all been rectified.
Yes. My office has received communication from the review engineer. There are 2 minor issues remaining. One is an issue that the homeowner is going to resolve. It's the paving of a driveway. There was an apron that was unfinished. The owner of the home is the relative of a paving contractor, and they said, we're already going to pave our driveway from the garage to the street, so we'll take care of the apron, so it's a monolithic pour, and we don't have to worry about trying to match up. The other is loaming and seeding, which I've spoken to the developer twice, and he has twice offered to go and do it this week, which was 2 weeks ago and last week, and I said, no, because you're going to have to do it again in April anyway. It's a small area of loam and seed.
Is that the hill of the
Yes,
backside that you're
yes.
talking about? Because the runoff off of there is terrible, so.
So, yeah, and in the winter, you're just going to wash the seed and the loam away. So in the spring, that will be something he does. And, you know, if it's not done or incomplete in a way that is continuing to cause problems, that can be resolved at town meeting by not accepting the road, and he continues to hold on to
Fair
it.
enough.
So are you looking for us to
Yes.
offer
To-
layout?
To offer a report,
Okay.
to basically vote to send a report that is either in favor of or not in favor of, and any potential conditions or issues that you see.
So we're in favor of it as long as in the spring they seed and loam.
Right.
Are you asking me or you're telling me?
Well, I can't make the motion, but I'm assuming that's the motion you're looking for, so I just want to
Yes,
verify
I'm looking
that's
for the
motion.
board's general feeling. Yes, it would be a motion of sending a report in favor of layout, and if you feel that the loam and seed is worth mentioning, to add that as a comment.
Okay, because I thought we voted this.
I would just say, yeah, the general stormwater management and the runoff, if it's addressed by the loam and seeding, that's great. If it's not addressed by the loam and seeding, then we have to do something else to get that rectified before we inherit that road.
Again, my understanding is that it's met all of the requirements of the approval, and whether or not, I don't know if that hill existed prior to the development or not. It was created by the development.
It was created by the
But
development.
my understanding is that it's been signed off by the review engineer and the DPW director.
And I thought we already voted on this to send it to the Board of Selectmen to go on the warrant. So,
Motion to approve the laying out of the Whitetail Crossing subdivision.
Provided they loam and seed in the spring.
And address the runoff.
Yeah, sounds good.
okay,
Second.
any discussion? As long as they loam and seed.
Yeah, I keep bringing up the bounds.
Bounds are in,
They are in.
yes. I've witnessed them myself.
Excellent. Nope, no comment.
You're done?
I'm done.
Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Moving right along. White Woods, Mass Ave, no report. Highfield Village, no report. And if you have questions as we say no report, just jump in. Elmwood, no report. 909 Mass Ave, verbal update,
The decision has been filed with the registry.
no appeal.
No.
Okay, perfect. Tri-Town Landing, no report. Well, you all saw that we did get some 40S money. You saw that email
Yes.
from Kerry? So that's a good thing. Does anybody know what we're gonna do with the 40S money? It's going back to the school, I'm assuming? It has to go into the school
Yes.
budget? Okay.
And I think that there's some question on
Does town meeting have
timing
to
and how they have to
appropriate?
do it. I think that there's some, because we received it this late in the year and the budget's already been programmed, I think that there's some, not issue, but I think it ends up being applied next year based on the way that they have to work the budget around.
And does town meeting appropriate within the school where that money goes to? Or is
I
it just a
don't
gift to?
Believe so. I think it's, like everything else, the school kind of has reign over their budget to figure it out. I can clarify that. I believe that the town manager included some of that information in her email, sort of clarifying what the process was. I'm not recalling off the top of my head. I'm not gonna.
Read it. Okay, thank you. All right, middle school, high school project, no report. Emerald Place, no report. Force Corp, no report. Action file, the housing production plan, I see the selectmen voted to approve that.
With the addition of Mrs. Bertram's comments.
Yes.
Which were, I believe, forwarded to the board back when they were received.
Okay, so do we have anything to talk about with that?
Only whether or not you would wish to approve it, or if anybody has comments on the final version of the plan.
I looked at the final version, but it may not have had the Board of Selectmen's comments.
It did not. That was the version that came prior to that meeting with the board. So I'm going to forward those comments to Sam, and I'm waiting to make sure that this board doesn't have any comments on the final version, to have him include them.
Okay.
And then have that version forwarded on to
The state.
the state for approval.
Okay, so you're talking about comments not on the Selectmen's comments, but just comments on the final one? Okay.
Correct. Unless there's something major on the selectmen's comments that you feel should be addressed.
I don't know that I saw the Selectmen's comments. Maybe they were sent.
Yeah, I don't recall
I
seeing
don't
them.
recall. See, I was just looking for them as well, so.
Okay.
I just watched the meeting today, so.
Yeah, I
got
listened
it.
to the meeting, so.
They were... I know that the first one dealt with the number of units in Tri-Town Landing in the chart that identified
Okay.
the affordable units, and I think that what happened was the chart was based on August of 14, and I believe occupancy for the third building was issued after that, so they were looking for an amendment to include those units so that we were able to see that. Let's see. There was some question about the population projections, and that the CWMP that was prepared by the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs was showing a larger population growth, and might show, need to be adjusted to allow for a better understanding of what the needs might be. The development constraints, adding the Lane property in as protected open space, since that is now officially purchased. There was talk about adding in information about the community's previous efforts at the CPA, and, not necessarily taking out the suggestion, but saying that, it might be kind of a futile effort a third time, since when the incentives were higher, the town wasn't biting. Input from the Building Reuse Committee should be sought for the potential of the primary school and the TC Passios for housing. I know that we can certainly mention that they're doing that. I think input from Building Reuse is probably on the longer term side of things. Maybe that's something I see that Paula's here tonight. Maybe she's willing to comment on that. The Housing Production Partnership, that we have a partnership committee currently, and she's saying that maybe we should see how that and joining the regional collaborative or consortium overlap. And
I'm sorry, I missed that. We have a what?
currently Lunenburg has a housing partnership committee which is charged with addressing local housing needs through a collaborative effort between local government, community organizations, banks, and the private sector. The committee may be inactive, however, tasks outlined with the section entitled "Create a Lunenburg Housing Production Partnership" and consider joining a regional housing consortium may overlap with the charter of the Housing Partnership Committee. So what she's saying is there's already a committee that's seated. If it's inactive, maybe it's a matter of reactivating it as opposed to taking the steps to create something new.
Sure. That makes sense.
Current zoning bylaws, the HPP suggests bylaw be adopted to require all new development. We have the requirement on the all new development, and I think that we've had this conversation before about whether or not it has some loopholes in it, and maybe it's a matter of not adopting a bylaw, but revisiting the existing bylaw
Yeah.
to create something that's maybe easier to enforce or easier to apply for new developments. The Housing Trust Fund, the HPP suggests.
I'm sorry, Adam, I'm sorry to interrupt
Sorry.
you, just on that question. So yeah, and I've had a chance to get more familiar with that recently. No rush on this. At some point in the next couple months of meetings, I'd be curious if you could find out when that was introduced.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to understand. I'm thinking about projects that have come before us recently, like Arrow Estates or whatnot, where like it seemed like there wasn't, where it wasn't applied, and I'm trying to understand whether it was because of unit counts or whether it was because that was passed after that the plans were submitted, or what this. So that's the only. That's
Sure.
just where I'm
Yeah.
going with that one.
Housing Trust Fund, the plan suggests establishing a municipal affordable housing trust, and she's wondering if the Housing Partnership Committee currently has a trust fund, and if they do, or if they don't, would they be the appropriate body? And I mean, she doesn't say that, but I think that that's a logical next step, is if it exists, can we sort of start to move into that? And then monitoring the foreclosures. She mentions the program in Athol that I believe Sam mentioned, about they monitor foreclosures, they map them for vacant, and she wants to know whether it's available for Lunenburg. And I think that that's certainly something that could be looked into. I don't know how they do it or where the funding comes from, but I believe Sam mentions that in the suggestion and the recommendations of things that could be done, and so that is in the plan, and it's just a matter of following up to find out how we would actually apply it.
I've been asking for the Ethel, not Sam. I asked Chantel back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Sam
and then
had mentioned
I
it
brought
at that
to
first
Sam.
meeting.
No, I brought
Okay.
it up to Sam again because MRPC brought it up that Athol's doing this and they're tracking for vandalism, for kids breaking in, for the properties not decaying, and there's state grants to help you renovate these houses and put them back on the market and get them on your tax bracket back paying and there's no damage to the house. So that's something I've been passionately trying to get, passionately trying to get in Lunenburg.
I just want to clarify a couple of the, I don't know if this is on, but I just want to clarify a couple of the issues or the comments that I forwarded on the HPP. The building reuse, the reason that I mentioned it is because the HPP talks specifically about the use of these municipal buildings for housing. And I know that right now the building reuse is considering moving town offices, and I just think that needs to be flushed out, that these are not necessarily on the books for housing, that a multiple of uses are being considered,
Yep.
including housing, because that's not the way it's phrased in the draft HPP. So that was my concern. The CPA, it clearly states that the town has not voted on the CPA, when in fact the town has voted twice. So that's an error. The zoning bylaw, the question that I had is, the zoning bylaw right now is that it's a threshold, that if you have X amount, then you have to have a percentage of your units. In the HPP, it states specifically that the planning board is considering adopting it for all new development. And when I read the HPP, that was news to me, because I hadn't heard that. I'm happy to hear that. But what was presented in the HPP is that the planning board is considering adopting a bylaw that will apply to all new construction. And I had not heard that. So that was my question, is because this was brand new to me. Because I know we have inclusionary zoning, but it's when you meet a certain threshold, then it triggers. And so that was news to me. So my question was, is this something the planning board is considering? And then the Housing Trust Fund, I think, is pretty clear. I just want to understand what the housing partnership's role is, and if we need to tweak that, or if we need to change that. I think that's something we could do fairly easily. So I'd like to investigate that. And then finally, the foreclosures, I was very interested to hear about that program, and if there's a way that we can get that, obviously it's a tool that would be very useful.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So I have no problem implementing the HP back to Sam with
Okay.
the comments from the Board of Selectmen. I don't want to speak for my team.
They sound good to me. I agree.
Can we get a written copy of those?
Yeah, yeah, I
Get the
yes.
audio email.
No, I will certainly
Digest things
forward
a
those
little
along.
better.
I thought that I had in a previous email.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you. Matthew, you also,
Yeah.
are you okay with including those in?
I would like to hold off until we actually have the written.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fair.
Was there going to be any impact to holding off in terms of,
It pushes the clock back. I mean, the next meeting is the 12th. Whether, I think if we sent Sam,
Oh, because he wanted this by the end of year, right?
well, he did based on the DLTA,
The funding, yeah.
but I think that if we sent it to him tomorrow, it's not going to get done until next week at the earliest. And, you know, at that point, you're only a week or two out. I don't think it's going to kill his.
Okay.
I can keep him
Check
up to
with
date
him.
on what's going on. Clearly, the board can't vote if you don't do it tonight. I don't think that's going to blow the whole thing out of the water. If he can't work on it due to funding, adding those things in is something that can easily be done in our office, and we can just work on submitting it from there.
great. And just one other, that sounds fine then. One comment, if, when the revisions come through, like you're doing with your, the village district thing, where you got the revision trail on a document that size, that'll be super helpful.
Yes, I very much agree. I didn't expect to get it back without the track changes, so I'll make sure that I clarify that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so that's on hold now till the 12th. Okay, any other, anything else on the housing production?
Nope.
Okay. Village district bylaw, continued discussion?
Maybe we want to, just a suggestion, do you think we want, it seems, maybe we jump to Flat Hill and come back? And there's a lot of people who have traditionally been very interested in solar discussions in the audience today. And I don't know, maybe they're here for that, maybe they're not, but I'm assuming that update's probably going to be shorter than the village district bylaw. Same with Wayland Luxury.
I was hoping it was going to go the other way.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the update is on the solar.
All right, so are we going to 322?
Yeah, I suggest we do village district last.
Okay, so 322 Flat Hill Community Solar, verbal update?
The appeal period has completed. There was no appeal filed.
Okay.
The applicant has been notified to pick up the decision and record it with the registry.
Okay. So, that's done.
Correct.
Scenic Road, Flat Hill and Northfield Road, no report. These are approved on the warrant. They will be going on the warrant for, we just put it here because there's, as a placeholder for that. So these are two that are going to the Board of Selectmen on the warrant for approved scenic roads at our May meeting, because we had that discussion at the end. So I just wanted to clarify that Flat Hill, they're all set. Well, on our end, once they get to the Board of Selectmen, that's another.
Yes.
As far as we are, they're good to go. All right. Whalum, 250 Whalum Luxury Apartments, the ZBA approved.
What did they approve?
They approved the
80, was it 80?
project as submitted. Was it, I thought it was over
16.
100.
Oh, because they went with the apartment.
Yes, I think it was 125. Was the
125
final
with the
number.
apartments.
The decision's being finalized with town council, and it was mentioned at the Board of Selectmen meeting. They came to an agreement on the, is it the privilege fee? That the affordable units will not be charged, the market rate units will be charged. I think it was in the ballpark of 1.1 million was the final figure.
Any questions? Okay. Master Planning Economic Development Element, no report.
Nope.
Leominster Shirley Road,
No
no
report.
report. Notice and Communications,
Is that still on?
Anything? No, you just sent them? All right, so we can now go back to
Village?
the village district bylaw. And what time is it? Okay.
Anyone need copies?
Anybody need copies?
Yeah, give it. My battery's about to die, so I'll take a copy.
Yes, please.
Borrow Matthew's cord. Oh,
This is my leftover.
I brought the wrong one. I brought the Android one, not the Apple one, so.
This is it as it was sent.
Oh, sent. Okay, good. I'm good then.
okay, so what do we got going on with this? Where are we at? Number 5.
I guess that's my question to you. I did receive some comments from Nathan, going back through the preamble and making some adjustments to that, and catching some additions that I should have removed, references to village district, maybe a word change here and there. But I think the easiest way to do it is to go through it section by section and ask for the board's comments. I think that worked well last time. I think that structurally, not a lot has changed, so it should move a little bit quicker than the last time. Clearly, we added the preamble. Nathan, do you want to go through your quick comments in there?
If it's worth it even, yeah. I mean, I basically, I apologize that the whole it's a little bit wordy. I tried to take a little bit of the wordiness out, make it read a little smoother, but I don't, it's really, you're talking like a handful of like small edits.
Okay. I had nothing jumped out at me.
I'm going to say the purpose didn't change.
Yeah, I guess my big question would be, did the board agree that captured sort of the spirit and purpose?
Yeah, I don't think anybody has any.
No, I thought it was good.
Okay, so we're there. That's all done. The purpose is all set. And I would say that as we're going through this, if there's anybody in the public that's been, doing this and they can jump up as well, just so we don't go backwards. Okay. So where are we? Establish?
And the establishment is what it is. There shouldn't be
Right.
too much question with that.
Definitions? We're all set.
So, just a quick question on definitions.
Yes.
That bed and breakfast. Is that all really a definition, or is that kind of outlining what's required for a bed and breakfast?
That is minus the addition of from that of a residence is the word-for-word definition that currently exists.
Oh, okay.
So that,
It just seemed more like requirements to me than the
well,
definition.
and it's and sometimes definition does that.
Right.
And the reason that I just cut and pasted was to avoid having to alter the existing definition.
Fine with me.
Okay. So we all set there?
Just seems odd, the definition is referring to a definition.
You were,
It's kind of like,
I totally agree.
it's an infinite loop. See definition. No, the definition is see the definition. Doesn't really, we should fix that.
Okay. We can, and we can certainly do that. The use complies with the definition of bed and breakfast. Actually, the easiest way to do that would be to take out,
Yeah, A is the problem there, right?
well, no. Take out everything up to provided, or up to the dwelling is owner occupied.
Okay.
If that's one of the requirements that's currently in there, that's an easy alteration to make on the existing portion of the bylaw. If you want to completely rewrite the bed and breakfast definition, we can do that. But normally one assumes a bed and breakfast is owner occupied.
Yeah, we don't need to redefine bed and breakfast, but I think for clarity's sake, if you make the edit you just described would be,
So A would read the dwelling is owner occupied.
I think that would help.
We could just leave the definition out entirely, and wherever it says bed and breakfast and the allowable uses or the special permit uses, we could comma owner occupied. Either way, I mean, just a whole bunch of words in here I don't think we need, but That's good.
It just seems like the rest of them are short, tight little snippets of what the definition is, and that one, for some reason, we went in a different direction.
Because most of the other ones don't exist in your current definitions.
Okay.
So this is just going to say number A is the dwelling is owner occupied.
So what does that say about our current definitions?
Two, okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Again, I'm happy to rework it and go back. And, I mean, we kind of had this conversation the last time, go back and alter the other definition as well at town meeting. Or propose to alter it.
Or reference the other definition more directly.
Yes, and I had thought about that. The reason I didn't was I felt that having all of the definitions in here and one that said see section 2 for further definitions creates the having to flip back and forth, and if everything's already here, I felt like it was more cumbersome to have the reference back than to just include the sort of wordy and odd-looking definition.
Is the existing definition really wordy? Or is it?
It's that.
Is it really what?
Wordy.
Yeah, it's like cut and paste.
Oh,
Same thing.
It is the same thing.
Just written again, so you don't have to flip back and forth when you're reading through this.
Okay. All right, then just yeah, you're right. Just get rid of the use complies with the definition of the bed and breakfast
Okay.
clause.
All right, so can we move on from that?
Yep.
All right. So are we up to number 4, authority?
Yes. All right, unless anyone has other definition comments.
I like the changes that you made around the restaurant. That's what I wanted.
Okay.
Yes.
Authority, everybody's all set with authority? The provisions?
Provisions, I think I got some.
I had a question on the square footage.
In provisions.
Yeah, on 7 and 8, referring to 2,500 square feet.
Oh, we had a long talk
Yeah,
on
we had a
this.
long talk about
That was a long talk. That was 10,000 square feet we
Well-
were at, right?
No, that was a different section, actually. That was,
Oh, okay.
That was the special permit section.
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't think we talked about 2,500 square feet, or maybe we glanced over it last time. But that just seems small to me from architectural standpoint. Even a lot of the residences in the center of town are pushing 2,500 square feet
Yeah.
per floor.
Mm-hmm.
I almost would want to see it 5,000, just like the other section that we had hammered out before.
Yeah, actually,
Oh, that should say 5.
yeah, we do kind of create a limbo between 2,500 square feet and 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think that I
Because here we
Omitted
say
it somewhere in the special permit
5,500,
process, yeah.
And then special permit talks about 5,000 square feet. So
Yeah, I thought the whole thing
you
was
probably want to make
5,000.
it contiguous.
I thought it was,
And that 5,000, just to be clear, was 5,000 per floor, I think.
yes.
Correct, it was.
It
of
was.
gross floor area on any individual floor.
It's number 2 on page 5.
Yep. So we can change that to 5 on the by right.
Yeah, on the number 2, you have to
You have to change
match
the
the
word.
word with the number 2.
Yes, I that's what I was just scratching over
It should be
here.
5,
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on provisions?
So what did we say? 5?
5,000?
5, 7, and 8 are going to go to 5,000?
Yes.
Okay?
5, 7, and 8.
I don't know.
5.7 and 5.
Oh, yes, yes, okay.
And you got the thing about the SF stuff, right? It's just missing the.
Square
Yes,
footage.
yes.
Yep. Anything else? Are you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not good, thank you.
Okay.
Just one thing, I was looking over our existing bylaw, and I just wanted to so there's in section 4211M and 4211N. These, I think M deals with accessory uses in the district,
Yes.
and N deals with trailers.
Well,
Occupied.
okay, so this is the residence outlying district. And it says accessory uses customarily incidental to a permitted main use on the same lot according to the following. So this speaks to mostly stuff that appear to be residential accessory uses.
Yes.
And all new residential uses are special permit.
Oh, I see.
So any of these things would be encompassed in that special permit process, I believe.
Wow, what would they do if I want to build I own a residence, it's in the district, I want to build a shed, and that, my ability to do that seems to be governed by 4211M.
Only if it's bigger
I
than 10
don't
by 12,
believe
right?
that. I believe
Okay.
that, and again,
Okay,
this
okay.
is something I have to speak to the building inspector about,
Yeah,
but my general understanding is if you own the property
Yep.
and you're putting an outbuilding up,
Yep.
if it's less than,
10 by 12.
is it, I thought it was 200, but maybe it's back to 120, but
Okay.
you don't need the building permit. Once you get over that, you do need the building permit, and as long as you meet the setbacks, if it's not a separate use,
See, I thought that section was what defined what accessory uses like garage and that kind of stuff were accepted.
but I mean, and again, it does say that.
Yeah.
But a garage in and of itself is not a use.
Okay.
And again,
Yeah.
and I
so-
see what you're saying. I think it's an.
I just don't want to end up in no man's land.
No,
here, 'cause
I'll
interesting
speak
thing
to the
about
building
these-
inspector, but I think it's an antiquated approach
Okay.
to accessory buildings, because one can generally assume that if you own a piece of property and have a home, there will be some things that are part of owning a single-family home that may require an additional building that are not altering the character of the property.
And I'm cool with that. The only other thing, the one on trailers I'll mention is, it seems like in addition to enabling usage of these temporary trailers in a few conditions, it's also establishing the prohibition of having one kind of permanently.
And I think that that's a prohibition in general. I think I
Okay.
remember seeing a mobile home as a general prohibition within all districts in the town.
Okay.
And honestly, these temporary trailers,
So
you don't necessarily need a zoning bylaw to allow you to do a temporary trailer.
Okay, so I'd love to not have this extra verbiage in there. I just want to make sure that we're not creating some kind of weird loophole.
I don't believe that we are, but I will verify with the building inspector.
I have a question. What are we talking about? What section? Where are you at?
We're under provisions.
He's actually in the
On
the
page,
protective bylaw.
Okay.
And he has a question as to whether or not an existing section of the protective bylaw needs to be included in this new bylaw to allow for continuity and the use of accessory structures on a lot
Okay.
that
A residential.
aren't necessarily a secondary use, but an accessory structure to the primary use that doesn't change the character or alter the use of the property.
Thank you.
I just had another question as far to the square footage thing. I'm fine with the 5,000 square feet, don't get me wrong. But we say retail operations more than 5,000 square feet per floor. This is under C of 5. It's just a question, as some of the municipal buildings in town have greater footprints than that. So if someone comes before us to do something in those buildings, do we waive it? I mean, it says it's not allowed here, right? Or, so they just said we have to find another use besides retail on that floor, or,
It's per retail use.
so it could be 2 stores?
Yes. So I think the idea behind the cap is to avoid a national retailer coming in
Yeah, I get
and
that.
sort of blowing something out and putting in, their CVS or their EMS or whatever it is. And usually a local store is going to be on a much smaller scale. So 5,000 would be plenty of square foot on a floor for them.
Yeah, it's just the awkward one is like the old primary school is 7,500 on the first floor. So, I mean, I guess you could break that up in two. For some reason, the post office up and left, that one's 6,600, so that would have to be like 2 stores. But, I mean, I guess we can live with it for those 2 cases.
And there is this special permit dimensional variation. So that's a dimension. If someone went through the process to go to the zoning board and had a reasonable, proposal that didn't derogate from the remainder of the village bylaw, it's reasonable to believe that the zoning board would act
Okay.
in a manner that's consistent with their, precedents.
All right. I'll set then.
It's just to help the state bylaw, help boards understand stuff.
Okay. So are we all set on provision? Number 6, going into dimensional requirements.
Dimensional, I just had a comment regarding interior setback between buildings on the same lot. That was 20 feet. I guess my thinking on that was, so we have a proposed side back within the district, within VCD of 5 feet. And then you consider the fact that in a campus setting, presumably, they could call it one building and give it 0.
Well, you can have one building with multiple uses.
Yes.
If you're going to create multiple buildings,
Yes.
then the 20-foot setback is a fire separation. There's a requirement in the new fire regs that there be a fire lane of 20 feet.
So then how do we get away with a
Because
a 5-foot side setback elsewhere?
that's the minimum.
So, okay, so you're saying, but so that would be 5 here and 5 there, so that building would be 10, those buildings
Yeah,
would be 10 feet.
most of them aren't going to build 5 and 5. So
Okay.
the minimum is 5, so they can go as close as 5. But if one building is already 5, then when they go to the building inspector, he would say, now we have this issue here where you need separation to be able to get access to 3 sides.
So you're never gonna have you're never gonna have 2 buildings 10 feet apart.
I'm not going to say never, but it changes the construction methods.
Is it buildings of a certain square footage need access on all 3 sides? Because it can't be every building. I mean, you wouldn't have row houses, you wouldn't have...
No, well, but a lot of those are also older.
Grandfathered.
And row houses are considered a single building.
Single building, yeah.
Yeah, but we also do buildings that have 0 setback, they have firewalls between them.
Yes, you can do that. It changes the construction. I mean, you can certainly do that. I think that interior setback between buildings on the same lot, I was envisioning building, if they're together, I would consider that to be a single building, even if they have different spaces and have the firewall, that becomes a singular building.
Not always in the building code, they're 2 separate buildings.
But building code and bylaw, I think, separate that in a little bit. I'm talking actual buildings. When you create a footprint and pour a foundation, and I know that they technically have separate foundations, and if you want to make it 0, you certainly can. I was looking at the idea of campus setting being an actual campus, multiple.
Talking about the side setback?
The interior.
Interior.
2 buildings on the same lot, an interior
On the
setback.
same lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking more of the Laurel Lane A&R that we saw earlier as 2 buildings on a single lot than, 2 buildings that share a wall.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, so there are some guidelines elsewhere in the doc. So I appreciate the line of reasoning you got there. And I guess I feel like we have some other things, given design guidelines for campus. I guess I wouldn't want that to come in a situation where it becomes a nuisance, where they're really trying to achieve something. They're really meeting the spirit of the guidelines. They really could have just done something that would have been very clearly one building.
Sure.
But they want to split up address-wise, so it just felt like, maybe we don't need to have that requirement there.
Okay. I mean, we can take it out if that's the board's. I took a swing at the first set of dimensions, so, we hadn't really talked about that before.
No, and I appreciate you taking a stab at it. It's kind of cool that you put it. It's something that would stir up some conversation, I think.
I mean, leaving it in there's kind of a good thing, because they might be dancing around the square footage requirements per floor by making it separate buildings, and you don't want them touching per se, but 20 feet might be more than we want. I mean, 10 feet's fine with me. Do you understand what I'm
I
saying?
could live with 10 feet. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But if it has to be 20 feet for fire code, then.
No,
Well, and, you know, maybe there's ways that they can have access to the three sides that doesn't require the 20 feet. I know that if you're going to put a travel lane through for fire apparatus, it needs to be 20 feet.
Okay.
So that was sort of what had stuck in my head, so that was where I started with
yeah,
it.
and I think there's a lot of building code ways around that where we don't need to
Yes.
specify 20 feet for the sake of the fire code.
Okay.
So to that point, then, shouldn't the minimum side, and by the way, it's a minor typo on sire.
Yeah, siren instead of
Shouldn't
side.
that be 10 as opposed to 5? So it's not a first come gets the benefit?
No, again, it's a fire rating thing. You can put it that close as long as you rate the side of your building, from a building standpoint.
And they'll have access through other means within the,
So it's like allow by not over constraining it, just having the requirement that the fire trucks be able to get all three sides, not saying,
That's not even, I think, our job. It's a complete building code thing. It has to do with the size of the building, the type of construction, your fire ratings. I don't see why we need to over constrain that.
that's what I'm agreeing with. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, basically. It's like, so if the only way for that fire truck to get back there was between those two buildings, then it would become a constraint in the
yeah, and
process that would come out.
The fire department would say you can't get the big boy there.
I think a lot of times you're not going to find a lot of zero lot line. People are going to set it to one side of the lot or the other because they're going to want access to the rear of the building for parking, most likely.
All right, I was just thinking of the neighbor challenge.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly you can,
If you go right up to 5 feet of the next door neighbor's lot, then now all of a sudden that next door neighbor has a 15-foot restriction if they want to put a building in place because they got to provide for that 20-foot lane. So that's why I was saying first comes.
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. If you want to change it to 10, I don't think that's,
First, you only have to abide by 5 feet, and the guy that comes there after you.
I don't see it as it working that way, though,
Okay.
just because it does depend on building type and
yeah.
so many other situations where we shouldn't be worried about the fire code. In
Fair
our-
enough. I asked the question.
So do you want to reduce the interior? Is that what I'm hearing?
To 10, I thought.
10 would be nice to me.
Yeah, I'd support that.
I just
Other
had
two? Ken, Matthew, 10?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
No, come up.
I apologize, I wanted to go backwards just for 1 second. On section C2, where it says retail operations with more than 10,000, and then it says 5,000
Yeah,
in brackets of gross floor area on any individual floor. I'm just trying to understand that in relationship to 5.7, which says mixed use containing less than 5,000 square feet per individual proposed use. But this section, C2, prohibits, you can't have a retail operation more than 10,000 square feet, period? Is that,
It's actually, C2,
yeah.
it should read 5,000 of gross floor area on any individual floor.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to understand the elementary school then. If we were to repurpose that building, that's saying that only 5,000 of that square area on that floor, which is a one-floor building, can be used for retail.
It's saying that each individual use.
Retail.
They could break it up into multiple stores.
But see, that's where I'm getting stuck, because it says, it talks about mixed use on section 5.7, and it says per individual proposed use. But section C2 doesn't say for any individual use. It says
Yeah.
gross area per floor.
So, I
So they
mean,
contradict each other.
perhaps that should say individual retail operations with more
Yeah,
than
because-
5,000.
Because, yeah, not,
The same verbiage. Yep,
In,
the
in,
same.
this, in a similar vein, while we're on that one, just to make sure the board's all on the same page, so would it make sense to move the language, the per floor language, into the multiple use one? So is the intent to only allow, let's take the extreme case, the biggest retail operation you could have under this would be 3 stories is the maximum allowed in the district. Maybe unless they do a basement thing or whatever. So you're talking maximum size retail would be 15 to 20,000, which is good size, whatever. The way I read it now, even if we make the correction Paula just talked about, you're not going to be able to combine that kind of, let's say a 2-floor single operation, 5 and 5, is part of a mixed use thing, because that whole operation now is 10, and it's more than 5 per individual use. Was that the way it's supposed to be? Is that intentional, or?
Just to be honest with you, from a building standpoint, I really don't even see a retail operator coming in and putting his 5,000 square foot operation on 2 levels, just because of the sheer cost of an elevator, which is going to be over $100,000 for that elevator, when he could go anywhere else in town and just put it on 1 floor.
Yeah, I understand. It makes sense, but I mean, who knows? Look down the road, whatever, you know. This has got hopefully going to last us a few years, but I appreciate what you're saying there. But yeah, maybe elevators get cheap or Lunenburg gets expensive.
Yeah. And the cost of electricity is going to get cut down significantly too.
They just go with the chair lift.
Looks like it is.
It gets repealed.
So I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So the question is, here, let me just. So basically, in the multi-commercial use thing here,
It's 3 stories.
sorry, in under 5, it just talks about multiple commercial use containing less than 5,000 per individual proposed use.
I see. Oh, yes, okay. So I think,
So now that I guess where I'm going with this is now that we've restricted the max, unless our intent really is to say, oh, you can't mix that maxi use with other uses, which maybe people are thinking that, maybe we should just get rid of since we already have an overall square footage constraint on a per use basis, maybe we can just get rid of the square footage reference in 5, 8,
7 and 8.
5, 7, and 8, and just.
Or,
I think they're 2 different things.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, so the implication of having it though.
5 is allowed by right. C is prohibited.
Yes, but I think the implication, if you put them together,
he's saying that by prohibiting it, you're really capping retail use at 15,000 square feet because you're only allowed to have 3 stories. So if you limited it more at
Right, but that would imply we're going to change 5.7 to 15,000.
Well,
5,000.
well-
I don't think that's what we're saying.
And I think that you could also add a line to the special permit that allows you to go above the 5,000 on multiple floors.
I guess bottom line is here's what we're doing here. And I'm not saying this is a big deal or not. I just want to make sure we're consciously doing it. Is we're basically saying that you can have it over here in this other section here. We're saying that you can have a retail operation that's between 5 and 15,000 square feet. You can but it's got to span multiple floors. That's basically what it says here.
We already said no more than 10,000.
Where's that?
No, it's 5,000 per floor.
I don't see why we don't make it a special permit and not disallow it.
Because I think it's disallowed because we're trying to make sure we don't get a major retail chain coming and putting in a big box store.
What if you get the most fantastic retailer that you've ever thought of coming to Lunenburg, but they have 5,500 square feet?
Can we resume that? I just want to finish this other point, and then we can move on to that one. So we're saying, okay, you can have between 5 and 15, but it's got to be across multiple floors. But what we're doing, because we have the square foot language under 5, 7, and 8, is we're saying that particular configuration you can have, but you can't mix other uses in with it. Because then it would violate the terms of 5, 7, and 5, 8. And I don't feel that strong. It just seems weird, I guess.
Well, I think that for 8 at least, for 7 at least, the intent would be that the commercial uses are all going to be on 1 floor, the first floor.
Okay.
And then second, third floor, or retail would be first floor. Second, third floor would be office and or residence.
Right.
So you eliminate that issue in 7 at least. Because, and clearly there's always going to be some exception to the rule
Sure.
where somebody decides they want to sell something on the second floor because it's whatever.
Sure.
But usually it's not going to be multiple floor. I generally understand where you're coming from for 8. And I think that rather than eliminating the cap within the by right, it would make more sense to put the litmus test of a special permit
Okay.
on top of the additional space just because it gives some control and some sort of check valve to how it's being applied, as opposed to just kind of go ahead and do it.
Yep, so I'm okay with that. I just wanted to clarify, make sure we were moving forward intentionally. And
That's my take on it. You know, I mean, the board ultimately is the sponsor of the bylaw. So if there's something that, if the board doesn't want to do that, or the board is more comfortable moving in a different direction, I think it's worth having that discussion, but.
I was kind of fine with how you had it laid out to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry for taking up that much. Now, you guys had something you wanted to talk about.
Wait, are we all set with your point? Are we?
I'm good with, I think we're good
So,
with my point.
Should we just add then a B dot, I guess 9?
Yes,
That says retail operations with more than 5,000 square feet?
it would be multiple commercial uses containing,
Or commercial uses, commercial uses with more than 5,000 square feet per individual proposed use. So that would be the special permit
Yes.
clause. So that would be B9 or whatever.
Wasn't that opening the door for a larger retailer?
It is, but we already saying that retail operations can't exceed 15,000 square feet if you look at C, right?
And you're saying it's not gonna be worth it to them,
It
put
won't
an
be worth it,
escalator or an
you're saying,
elevator.
But, I mean, if you look at the bylaw, it basically says a retail operation can have 5,000 square feet per floor, and we can say they can have up to 3 floors, which says they could go for up to 15,000 square feet if they wanted to do that, which is really big, in my opinion, for the village district.
But you're talking about still breaking it up per floor.
Well, that's how we did it. We said per floor, 5,000 square feet per floor.
So what's the special permit for?
If you wanted to have a retail operation with more than 5,000 square feet total. Because we're saying that the use provision, you can only have less than 5,000 square feet per individual.
I see, yes, that makes total sense.
Yeah, so they could.
So that even if you're gonna divide it by floors, it's still a special permit.
Right.
But you can't have, there's absolutely no ability to have more than the 5,000.
Okay,
Per floor.
so if you do that, then you can get rid of this stuff in the other one, because that,
No, no.
I don't think you can get rid of anything.
I think what he's
you just
saying
have to
is-
Add B9 or whatever the number.
You already wrote your
oh,
B9
okay, okay,
down.
okay.
Yep, so he's saying leave the 5,000,
Yeah.
because that gives you a bar by right, and people know they can look at
Yeah.
it and say, all right, here's my by right, but I want 6,000.
Okay, so you gotta go up.
Yes, and then you have to go get the special permit,
From the zoning board of appeals.
because it's more than the 5,000 that's allowed by right.
Okay, sounds good.
So then there is no single retail use allowable, by right?
What do you mean?
Not by right.
Single retail use?
Yeah, number
Under,
one.
under 5,000 or under.
Yeah.
5.8?
It's number 1, use 5.1.
Well, 7 and 8 both speak about mixed use, multiple commercial use.
Look at
Number one is retail.
Okay. Of course.
Are we back on dimensional requirements?
I'm hoping.
Yep.
Are we back
So-
on number 6?
Just a question, maximum building frontage, 300 feet, that's the actual length of the building?
Correct.
And we
I mean, I
changed-
think that we'd be, I'm sorry, I was gonna say, I think we'd be hard pressed to get too many 300-foot buildings on a lot of the parcels.
Yeah, that's a pretty big,
And we changed that last block to 10,
Correct.
from 20 to 10.
Correct.
The interior setback.
So.
Yeah, that's correct.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, and so, again, now I'm starting to get a little confused on it. So if we look at 5.1 through 6, they're not implying any size constraints, and then 7 and 8, we introduced the size constraint. So do we want to have it as implement this 5,000 square feet per individual proposed use as part of the use provision? As a general statement, and then list as the subcategories, retail, professional office space, and so forth, so that the overriding guide for the use provision is anything containing less than 5,000 square feet per individual proposed use. And then here's the proposed uses, as long as they're within that 5,000 feet, you can do retail, professional office, personal service, and so forth.
I don't,
Because the way this is reading, those 5,000 per individual proposed uses do not apply to retail. So he says I can come in and put,
Well, it does apply to retail when you get to C, saying you can't go over the 5,000.
Yeah, the others are governed by the,
saying that I could essentially do a 15,000 square foot retail establishment in the village district without a special permit.
that's right.
And I don't think that that's good.
Over multiple floors.
Correct.
Okay.
There's-
Yes,
there-
I would
there's
agree with
no
that.
restriction on size in 5 in general.
Yes, and I think that I'll agree with you on retail. My concern comes with maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to limit the size on those either.
Because
So then can we add the sizing on these?
Yeah,
where
I mean-
You think it pertains?
we could put retail,
Up to 5,000 square feet. And
Yeah.
then-
and I say that because, professional office space.
If you had a big office come in, that'd be a
Well,
plus.
let's take any of these colonial houses, any of the giant ones. Somebody comes in, totally leaves the exterior as it is, and occupies it top to bottom as their law office. 3 partners, an associate or 2, a couple of paralegals, a clerk, a couple of conference rooms. You could be talking 12, 13,000 square, maybe not 12 or 13. No, I guess not. I guess
Look at
they're,
these houses.
yeah, no, I guess not.
I'm not.
No, but you could easily be up to 4 or 5. So yeah,
4,000,
we're still
sure.
5. Yeah.
Maybe even really if you push it 5, but
No, yeah.
those are big houses, right?
Yeah.
Do we have any 5,000
5,000.
square foot houses in the center of town?
Yeah, I'm sure we
Yes,
do.
yes, you
Yeah.
I was looking at that today. I mean, a lot of it, when you think of square footage of a house, they never count the garage. But if you're fitting it out to offices or something like that, they would probably occupy the garage, and that's going to inflate that number
I haven't considered the garage.
higher than what you would think. Or barns that a lot of the houses have. And I just think of that from a reuse perspective too, with the larger footprint buildings, if we had an office come in.
And I guess that's the sort of rub, is because if you're using some of those additional spaces for office and whatnot, and it doesn't change the exterior, whereas retail tends to have a little bit more desire to change the outside, whether it's signage or other, because they're trying to draw people in.
And I think we're trying to put an emphasis on small business, which
All right,
is,
so it sounds like what we're saying is, the simple change here is to just say, on 1, retail containing less than 5,000 per individual proposed use. And just add that clause the same way it is on 7.
Okay.
We're good?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to be, not to get too technical, I think you can say retail less than 5,000 square feet, because that's like the unmixed retail. That's like, this is one use.
Yeah.
That,
It says per individual use, that's what it says.
Yeah, but I think what Nathan's saying is number 1 is a standalone retail, not a multiple. So it would be,
Okay.
Are we still on dimensional?
Yes.
I don't think we can have a maximum front setback because we've got a lot of lots that have, the minimum frontage, and they're hammerhead lots, like they've got the minimum frontage for 500 feet. How are you gonna be able to apply a maximum setback?
do we, in the center of town, we have a lot of those?
Well, in the village district, we do.
Okay. Then
We do have hammerhead lots in the village district.
they could get a dimensional variation then, right?
yeah.
Because I think the intent of that,
These-
originally it
these are
came,
guides, right? So
this one,
Yeah.
that one came from the state guideline, and it's to make sure someone doesn't come in and put a new building or remove a building and putting in a new one and have a sea of parking in front of it. You want to keep that use near to the road to foster walkability.
Well, yeah, you want to, exactly, you want to foster the building addressing the street, not the parking.
Yeah, so you can always file to.
Yeah, and I think that situations like a hammerhead are reasonable.
Right, exactly.
Anything else on dimensional parking requirements?
just a private club, and maybe you already picked this
Oh,
up.
yeah. 1 parking space per.
Per club?
No, yes. I think it's probably
Very private club.
it's probably going to be more attuned to a restaurant
I'm sorry,
Per-
we're full today.
per seat, and then employ on the larger shift.
Okay. That's great.
So just for reference, where,
I
did you just pick these from standards around the area?
Yeah, they're a mix of standards and trying to not over-require, especially where there's the discussion about sharing parking and off-site parking. There isn't a good resource for this is the universally accepted standard. Everybody they fall into a range, so I tried to kind of middle the range that I found.
Gets out his planner's dice.
Yeah.
Anything else on parking?
I just have a
Oh, sorry.
quick question. Our Chinese restaurant down by Walmart, just curious what the parking standard was that they used. Did they use this one parking space per 4 seats?
I don't believe that they did. I believe that they probably used what's in your current bylaw.
And the current bylaw calls?
Traditionally by table, it doesn't always say
Yeah, I
how
think
many
it's by
seats at the table.
They use the current bylaw.
So if you have a 10 top, I think it's being addressed the same as a 2 top.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the best way to do it.
All right, so we did, it's a parking spot per table
Oh,
or
not
something
this
like
one?
that?
Yeah.
That's how it got the way it is.
I mean, I can tell you what the exact language is.
And have we included additional requirements for takeout, like we said we should?
Yeah, I think
did.
if you look at the restaurant definition, it's been
Yeah,
updated.
we updated the restaurant definition.
But I think he's talking about individual parking spaces
Yeah,
for
the
takeout.
parking requirements don't mention it, right?
Oh,
It's hard to quantify your takeout.
Right, like Chili's has the 3 by the door that is for takeout only.
Additional spaces shall be required for takeout as deemed necessary by the permit granting authority.
Yeah, for currently, section 6 says restaurants, 1 parking space for each table or booth, and 1 parking space for every 2 counter seats, and adequate spaces for delivery vehicles. It's arbitrary.
So when they designed it, they showed all the tables together.
We have 1 table.
So that covers delivery, but it doesn't cover pickup.
It doesn't. And,
And takeout is pickup.
yes, I understand this. I struggle with
It's
With
tough
how
to
to quantify
quantify that. How much, what percentage of your business is
I
going
don't
to be?
disagree, but still, we need to account for it. Added volume, added vehicles.
I haven't come across anybody who's included parking requirements for takeout.
Yeah, I would argue that the 1 space per 4 seats would probably cover. So I'm trying to think of other restaurants that also have a takeout business. In town, I haven't seen it be a huge issue, but,
I have, in my own experience, restaurants have done, the owner has opted to put those signs in because for their own business model, they want to have those people in and out.
Yeah, Olive Garden has them.
And usually what they're doing is they're taking away required parking and
Yeah.
putting that signage. It's unenforceable signage. I mean, if you were to go and park in the Chili's signed, Chili's to go parking space, sorry, I'm not picking on you, Chili's.
They're probably not going to tell you.
Yeah, they're probably not going to tell you because it's not worth the bad press. But most people, it's kind of like the no left turn signs. A lot of times they're unenforceable, but 85% of people will look at them and say, "Oh, I don't want to do that."
all right, so do we agree parking requirements for restaurant is okay the way it is? I think this is good.
I certainly think it's an improvement on our existing standard.
I had no problems with it.
I'm excited about it.
Excellent. Number 8, design standards.
I have one more
Oh,
comment.
yeah, go ahead, please.
In retail personal service liquor store, we say 1 parking space of net floor area,
Correct.
and then in the floor to area ratio, we talk about gross floor area.
Correct.
And is there anywhere in here that discusses the difference between the two?
I don't believe that there is, but I can certainly include it.
I think it should be addressed.
Move on. So So the net floor area is the usable floor area by the establishment, and the gross floor area includes the storage, correct?
Yes.
Correct,
So
And the-
will parking
I mean-
be based on the net floor area?
correct.
What about office space and
Well, again, if you have net floor area, which
mean-
is used office space.
Yeah, mechanicals, paper storage, that kind of stuff is not taking up space where you would need parking
I
for.
completely understand the concept.
Yeah.
It's just not verbalized.
Well, it's a pretty standard way of calculating your space.
There's a lot of things that are standard. There's no floor area there too.
Can we move on? You're adding that
Yes.
verbiage? Okay, so we're on design standards?
One more question.
Oh, okay, let's go back. Yep.
Bed and breakfast implies no employees?
No, because they live there?
I was gonna say, bed and breakfast implies that the operator is living on site.
And they don't have any staff?
And they have no staff? I mean,
Oftentimes not.
okay.
I mean, if you would like, we can include,
Was the Harley House considered a bed and breakfast?
Yes.
They had restaurant staff,
Oh,
wait
yes.
Okay.
staff, bar staff,
Tons of staff.
a lot of staff. Let's
And-
just add the staff clause.
yep, one per.
Did they classify that as a club or private club? How'd they navigate, because that was really a restaurant, it wasn't part of the bed and breakfast. I'm just, from a history standpoint, I don't know if you guys are here.
Well, they were under a special permit,
Okay.
and,
I didn't mean to open that can of worms.
I was just, we don't need to talk about
I
it now.
think
Thinking of that as a bed and breakfast, but.
and it was a bed and breakfast, and then I think the restaurant came into play, and they focused more on the restaurant than the bed and breakfast.
The bed and breakfast site I go to up in Maine, they have staff, right? So,
And that's fine.
Artist space?
Yes.
We specify parking per dwelling unit. Now, is that the same for a one-bedroom dwelling unit as compared to a four-bedroom dwelling unit? I mean, I realize it's unlikely that you get an artist space with four bedrooms, but
It doesn't necessarily count for bedroom, most of the times artist live workspace are single occupancy, and they're usually either a loft or a one bedroom. I mean, if you want to classify it per bedroom as opposed to per dwelling unit,
I would think that would be more appropriate. I mean, I'm not the only one here, though. Does anybody?
Yeah, that makes sense because we do say that any other residential use is 2 spaces per dwelling unit. So if you want to do it per room, I think that would be fine,
okay,
Per bedroom.
per bedroom.
per bedroom.
Avoid people falsely claiming to be
Or
artists.
accommodation.
I mean,
Line
I
up with
would,
the bed and breakfast wording.
yeah, I would almost just change it to 2 per dwelling unit, because I mean, you have multiple rooms, probably for your children. I don't know if you can have a whole guild of artists living there where you need 1 per bedroom and a 3-bedroom or something like that.
Yeah.
That's an option.
Per dwelling units.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay, so you want 2 per dwelling?
Dwelling unit, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could have a 1-bedroom with a couple there and they're both gonna have
It just
cars.
syncs up with all residential uses.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay, so it's 2 parking spaces per.
And what was the private club again? What are we doing?
It's gonna be 1 per 4 seats, same as the restaurant. So what I'll do is just shift it up to restaurant.
It's a standing room in a private club. Sorry.
Okay, can we go to design standards?
Yes.
And we change the vinyl unfinished metal.
Thank you.
Anything else under design standard?
I have a question about, and this is, I don't know, we don't have to dwell on this, but is there, where in the code, like, so I think we got a lot of good stuff in design standards, you know, about the parking. I think elsewhere in the bylaws, it talks about there's a separate section on parking that talks about, you know, you need a lane going in and a lane going out. I couldn't find anywhere in the bylaw, which now that Marjorie's uploaded it, is a live PDF you can search. It's like the best thing ever. I've been waiting for this for years. So thank you, Marjorie. And I searched it for curb and for cut, and how do we avoid, like, well, you know, having
I'll
situations
include
with
that in the parking stuff that I'm doing for Joanna. You want curb cut consolidation and potential shared access, that kind of stuff.
I think so. Yeah, and actually there might be something about curb cuts. That might be in our general bylaw. Although I think it's in a special, overlay or something area. Yeah. And I guess, what do we do that avoids just like getting the whole curb cut away? Like,
I mean, that, you can do it in development plan review.
okay.
You can say that's not an appropriate curb cut.
Okay,
And we
okay.
can include language in the parking section that says, one-way curb cuts are 18 feet, two-way curb cuts are 24. In no sense will a curb cut be larger than, usually it's 36.
But that's already covered in our parking.
I don't think that it is. I can
Okay.
include it when we alter the design standards for parking spaces from you need 300 square feet of parking area per,
Okay.
when we talk about actually laying out the dimensions of
Got it.
parking spaces.
Okay, so
Thank you, that meant a lot to me that you're working on the parking design bylaw. Thank you.
thanks a lot.
Anything else under design standards? Shines.
Signs. Wait. Signs.
Sign says, stay away from. Because it sits way back in the middle of the room. It's in your head now, isn't it?
All right, site design.
Nothing on signs? Site design.
I would have thought we wouldn't have anything to say on signs.
I know, I'm,
Well, I think we beat that one up a lot last time. right?
okay. And anything on site design? Number 9, Village District Campus Development.
I got something on that one.
Okay, good bingo.
So there's bylaw 341, and it says something about under no circumstances where there'll be two buildings on the same lot.
It actually references dwellings, if I'm not
Dwellings,
mistaken.
yes, you might be right about that.
Because I actually had a discussion with the building inspector about this in reference to a different matter, and we kind of went back and forth on it. No more than one building designated or available for use for dwelling purposes shall be erected or placed or converted to use as such on any lot in a subdivision or elsewhere in the town without the approval of the planning board. So that would only be living space or dwelling. And I think that here you're talking about a very different style, and I think that if someone were to wish to do it wholly commercial, you do allow by right multiple commercial uses earlier in the bylaw, and by putting the language in there, it just sort of says, yeah, you still need to do the development plan review because the way that that site is designed and laid out has a huge impact and needs to be shaped in accordance with what the town wants. But you can do it by right, you just need to go through this process, and we're not gonna say no, we're gonna tell you you have to do these things in order to be able to do it.
Okay, so just to make it kind of concrete here, so if someone came and proposed like a campus layout,
Yep.
said, oh, I got this great idea for a campus, I'm gonna put like, senior housing here, and this housing here, and this housing here, building 1, building 2, building 3, that would be okay, and that's not gonna run afoul of 341, even if it's not mixed use.
Well, it, I think, has to be mixed use. There's no provision for multiple residences, non-mixed use within the bylaw.
Okay, because like,
Because if we go back to the use provisions.
well, okay, by special permit there is. They'd still need a special permit.
1, 2-family, multifamily homes, apartment complexes, yeah. But then you avoid 341 by the special permit. The zoning board approves that, and then it comes to the planning board, and you approve it through the development plan review based on what the zoning board approves as far as the use.
Okay, so basically the effect that it's allowed by special permit, then approved by special permit.
Correct.
Takes care of that.
Correct.
Okay, got it, thanks.
In this whole section, can we strike the references to?
Yes, the VCOD, yes.
And replace that with the Great Center District?
So, sorry, sorry to jump in one more time. We talked about artist space and dwelling units. So same scenario. I say, oh yes, I'm gonna put this is going to be the painter's building, this is going to be the sculptor's building, this is going to be the whatever building, and they're all by right, and they're all allowed to dwell in those.
But it's a live workspace.
Okay, so that's cool.
So it kind of goes into that.
Mixed use?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
All right, anything else in 9?
Actually, I want to back us up again,
Yeah,
just for a quick,
to where?
Before we do that, real quick, VCD campus, Village Center District campus.
Yeah, and you should change or add the word center in the title as well.
Yep.
Because you shortened it to just Village District Campus. So just to be consistent.
So VDC development, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what page it was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Village Center District, VCD.
And where did you want,
I don't see a need to abbreviate it to VCD because we haven't throughout the rest of the document.
Okay.
where do you want to move back to, Damon?
just under site design for street furniture, number 4, outdoor tables, benches, and bicycle racks shall be of a style consistent with the principal uses of the site. But I'm not sure we actually require any of those things.
I think it's a matter of if you are going to put them in,
Okay.
that they're consistent.
Do we want to require those things as far as creating a community?
I don't think
Some
it's
walking
a bad
and-
thing.
I don't think they're required of them.
All right.
How could we encourage it?
Because, I mean, we talked about, like, bicycling and walking, so you would want those bicycle racks or the benches to sit, but it was just a general question for the board. If you don't feel we should require it, then that's...
I mean, if you want to encourage it, you could potentially give someone parking bonuses for the inclusion of bike racks, or I don't know how you would incentivize other furniture, though. I think that people who are developing something in a village center district would hopefully be looking to provide that as a way to entice people to their space in hopes that they'll spend their money and time and energy there. But, as far as encouraging it, I think that's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Instead of outright requiring it.
We could add that with the 15-foot maximum setback.
We also have a clause here with regards to the parking. We could add that in section 7.a, where we talk about up to 75% of the requirements for predominant use may be waived. We could throw a clause in there that if, provided it includes bicycle parking or something of that nature.
Yeah, maybe only up to 50% with the inclusion of bicycle or alternative transportation parking.
It's up to 75%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's an incentive there if you want to get the waiver for less parking.
They come on their scooter?
So really, we're saying they can reduce the requirements by 3/4?
That's what we have here.
Really?
For non-competing uses, shared on-site parking.
But can we go back, we answer your question, Damon?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to have the
And do we
conversation.
answer
Good luck.
Ken's question? I'm sorry, Matthew's question? Matthew had a question, and then
Oh,
Ken.
the reduction of parking requirements by 3/4.
No, before Ken went, you had made a suggestion.
Had I?
Yes.
About the bicycle reduction.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. The, where we had said maximum setback of 15 feet.
Right.
We could, in lieu of, well, I don't know, adding that somehow. If you're more than 15 feet back, we're required to have X amount of benches or a footpath or, I don't know, something.
We could do that. The board could also send the suggestion to the zoning board when someone makes application for a special permit dimensional variation beyond the 15 feet that they be required to install street furniture. And if you want to include it in the bylaw, we can. I don't know if you're going to put a maximum in, how you then put requirements for violating that maximum, because technically you can't violate the maximum.
I
You
understand.
could change it to maximum front setback without street furniture.
Actually, you know what? That would work.
Put a
And
star.
that way it avoids the special permit dimensional variation.
Yeah.
Right.
And we can come up with street furniture requirements. Okay.
Excellent.
All right. So now back to number 10.
I got one question about the village, the campus thing. 1A, about that, it says newly constructed buildings for non-residential use shall have a transparency of at least 60%. Is that on the first floor only? Is that the whole building? And I don't, it's, do we really need that?
I guess theoretically it would be for the whole building. We could limit it to the first floor.
That's a lot of glazing. I mean,
It is. If you look at a lot of the older homes, they were a lot of window.
not 60%, I don't think. I mean, like, my house has a lot of windows, but if you actually look at the area of the windows, it takes a lot of windows, I think, to get to 60%.
I think you'd be surprised. And we don't have to stick at 60%. I think 60% was sort of the, that was in here from your work with Chantel.
Which means it probably came from the state.
Probably came from the state, yeah.
And if you're having a storefront situation, they're gonna beef up the size of those front windows.
A glass storefront.
So that's cool, but why would we want to, see, that my concern is, like, why would we want to mandate it? Like, if it just didn't fit the use, you know, it just seems like that's my concern, is that we mandate a bunch of things that make sense in some cases, but not all cases.
And it's also, I think I know where that's coming from too. You don't want someone to construct a building that's so closed off where it doesn't feel inviting to the public.
You want some texture to the building. I think that by requiring that, you do exactly what Damon's saying, is make it.
You don't want a large blank wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that fit in our design standards? But there's a difference between avoiding a blank wall and 60% glazing. Like, it seems like this was designed for, like, you know, downtown air. Like, if you were going to build, you know, Main Street in air, that requirement would, you know.
But I think that's kind of what it is designed for. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of what you're trying to do.
Don't forget, this is in a campus development.
Right. So it just makes me wonder, you know, like, when I think about, you know, college campuses or whatever, which, you know, building-wise, maybe it's a little different, maybe it's similar. I just think when you actually do the numbers on 60%, that's a lot of glass. Which is, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying no one should do 60%. I just wonder if we're hemming ourselves in if we say, if you're doing campus, you know, it's going to be like curtain wall construction, you know.
I'd rather see it in there myself.
For the first floor or for the whole building?
For the whole thing. I like it, I'm fine with it the way it is, personally.
Because, I mean, we got the other design standard stuff, which talks about consistency with the district. So if they did something heinous, we could say, you know, like some kind of warehouse construction with no windows, we could kind of get them in design standards.
I kind of like to have thought about requiring it on all of them on the street level for non-residential. For that same reason you're talking about, that we are kind of looking at something like air, because,
So you're comfortable with the 60?
but I think it should be expanded beyond just the campus development.
Well, I would only ward against that because you don't want them to take a historic building and be required to.
True, for new
Well, this is new
construction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you did new construction in the whole district, yeah, I would agree with you.
And just first
I
floor?
just think of this as new construction of a campus on another piece of property, so you're putting in multiple buildings. You want that to have that welcoming, open look to it if it's non-residential. It makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's not a showstopper for me. I just,
Okay.
I'd like to, I can't totally picture what 60% looks like, but I think it's a lot of windows, basically. And that, if that's what folks want, I'm okay with it, but.
All right, so number 10. Are we on number 10 now?
Everybody else is okay with the rest of that?
I'm sorry?
Everybody was okay with the rest of 9?
Yeah, so between 9 and 10, I had a question. Do we need a clause? Now, this is its own district. I noticed in some of our overlays, there's sort of a standard clause, maybe this is just because they're overlays, about a conflict with other laws clause.
That's because they're overlays, because
Okay.
you have the option to do one or the other. So you can lay down which supersedes the other.
Gotcha.
I don't think it's necessary. The severability should really just be for it in and of itself.
Okay.
Are we all set?
Yep.
My question, I have the blue, all these blue things we put in there.
That's guidance from the state
Right.
that was included in the model bylaw.
Right.
That Chantel just sort of transferred over.
No, we had said we were going to keep it there. It doesn't have to be in the bylaw, but in the draft, so at town meeting, people understand, like all this conversation we just had, it helps them with the reasoning of why we made the decision on what we're doing in this section. For example, when we built the Lane property, it was very specific. Everything you read told you the 6 bullets of why we were going to buy the Lane property, which at town meeting, people understood why we were doing that. Where we've had, this is our 5th draft on this, going to town meeting, they're not going to know all these conversations that got us to create, and that's why we said we were going to have these bullets stay in here.
I think, my understanding is whatever is in the document when it goes to town meeting is what becomes the bylaw. So if you want to keep the commentary in there and want to give a brief history of it, we could include a companion document
Okay, or a
that is sort
handout.
of or a handout. That's sort of a process history or general guide to, but I think that the language on the paper that's the bylaw should just be what the board expects the bylaw to look like when it's inserted into the protective bylaw.
Okay, because I think, we've just had 5 meetings on this. This is our 5th draft, so to sit and have a half-hour conversation at town meeting is going to be very hard. So, and even on the draft, as people pull it up, we need the handout to go with it. As they're reading these, they understand why we did these decisions the way we did. So I want to make sure that we have those there to hopefully make the process easier. Did we find out how many houses with the new map are actually residential houses today are in that district?
There are 78 parcels in the proposed outline. There's 78 parcels,
Business and resident,
total parcels.
total parcels.
11 of them town-owned. I break down on my dead computer.
Okay. Because I would like to send a postcard to those 78 parcels, referencing them to the website to see your parcel of land is in the village district. Please go to the planning board website, and even if it's just a postcard, not a formal letter, and, please go to our website, read that. We're going to have public hearings on these dates. Please come so you know what's going to happen in your neighborhood. So I want to get those out to those 78 parcels if we can, just again, another vehicle to communicate to them what's going on. And I'll pay for the stamping if we don't have the money, I don't mind, for the 78 postcard, paying for the stamping. So that's all I had. Those were my bullets on that. Anybody else have anything they want to?
No, I'm pretty happy with, we've come a long way.
We've come
Lot
a
of
long
work.
way, baby.
I have a comment that's backing up to 5 use provisions in B.
5B?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So the special permit allows single and two-family homes, which is fine. The state model recommended against single-family homes in this village district. They also recommended against single-story buildings, but we've allowed single-story, single-family homes.
Right.
We did.
That was based upon public feedback that we got, where a lot of people were very concerned that if the village district passed, that they would have non-conforming properties if they had single-family homes and they wanted to keep them as such. And so we felt that because of the concern that was raised by the public, that it would be okay to allow that through special permit to still have the single-family home.
And I don't disagree with that, but how many of the single-family homes in the district are only a single story?
Just definitely, my across-the-street neighbor would fit into that category, so there's at least one.
Okay, well, I don't think that we should accept single-family homes. I don't think there should be any single-story buildings in new construction in this center district.
I think as they grant special permits and are aware of the structure of the bylaw, I think
Just my opinion. I just don't think there should be.
Where's the single story?
It's in C, 5C. The following uses are prohibited, one-story buildings except single-family homes.
So just, and I understand why we put the single back in there, but I guess a question to Adam, are you comfortable that the way we have this written, no developer is gonna come in, grab a 10-acre parcel?
I'm never comfortable.
Because I'm worried that they're gonna see, oh, no minimum lot size, limited frontage, I'm gonna put 50 single-family houses on this 10-acre parcel.
Well,
Well,
it requires
no,
a special permit.
because if they came in for a subdivision, they can't have a subdivision because you can't have single-family homes.
Okay.
So they'd have to go and get the special permit. And at that point,
At that point, we'd say no.
yeah, the zoning board, in theory, would say no.
Okay.
Under advisement from people who were saying that this is not in context with the surrounding area, it's disharmony, all that kind of fun stuff that they have in the special permit.
Okay,
Well, yeah, it doesn't meet the goals of the
Correct.
village center.
sure.
I mean, if you want to remove the except single-family homes in the one-story building, I don't think that necessarily changes the character of the bylaw.
No, I mean, whatever. I mean, as you said before, people who already have single-family homes can keep them. It's just,
Yep. And they're not considered illegal, they're existing non-conforming.
it's just a comfort thing, I guess. for
Yeah,
people.
and I understand that. I mean, if you don't do this all the time, it can be daunting to hear that what you own is no longer allowed.
Yeah, so I see both sides of the argument. I'm fine with the way it is, so whatever.
The other side of the argument that might not be clear is that this is for 10,000 people and not one person?
Yeah.
Right, for the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with changing C1 to remove the except single-family home statement and just say no one-story buildings. Because if we have one existing one-story building that's a single-family home, they're already included. And we really only included the single-family home references for public concern, right? Not, I mean, legally, they're fine, they can continue to have their non-conforming properties. It was just, there was concern raised, and I thought to make it easier to get everyone to understand and accept it, that's why we included it. We're certainly not promoting people to build single-family homes in the village district.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't use the word only for public concern in this case. I mean, I think, I think it just having that in there sort of, it just sort of softens the change, I think, for the existing residential neighborhood to know that, the residential character is still a piece of it and it will evolve, but it's still cut in there. I just think, I wouldn't underestimate what the value of having a certain comfort level amongst the people in that district, because if you don't, you're going to have a very loud, motivated, vociferous group. You can talk about 10,000 people in the town. 10,000 people in the town aren't going to care about it as much as the however many 100 people that live in that footprint right now. And so I think having those people be comfortable and not feel like this is being something that's rammed down their throats completely, has some value.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I mean, we can.
So do we, again, want to keep that as a highlighted item? Because I think that's kind of what we do, is keep that as a highlighted item, and as we do these public hearings, get feedback on that and see what the residents in the village district feel.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Yeah, I agree. So we could highlight the other use case too, where we call out single family as
Yeah.
well.
So just kind of highlight them, and as we have,
And really have someone take a look at this with an eye towards, hey, I want to come in here and build a bunch of single family
right, we could ask our peer,
properties.
yeah,
You
we
know,
could ask,
is there a sufficient loophole in this that I'd be allowed to do that?
So that's a good point. Here's a thought. I mean, a lot of special permit language, there's like things that guide the special permit. The default is like,
You'd like to add some additional language to the special permit section as it needs to meet these things?
or at least just lay out, not in a totally binding way, but lay out the criteria by which
Yeah.
special permit applications
Yeah,
will be
that's what I'm talking
evaluated.
about.
And so one of the criteria might be, pre-existing interests in ownership, and that's not the primary one, and the other one would be, meeting the goals of meeting the goals of this, meeting the purpose or whatever we have here, so that as we're going to evaluate, as the ZBA is going to evaluate a special permit, they'll realize that, accommodating someone who's lived in the district a long time and has had these plans, that's a legitimate goal. But if coming in here to build like 50 single-family houses that that are sort of contrary to the purpose of the village center district.
I was more concerned with if someone has a lot that's big enough under the new guidelines to subdivide their lot and put 3 houses on it instead of just one, that's not something we wanted to encourage.
Well, exactly, and that's why you have the sort of the principles that are animating the decision of the special permit, so it'll be very clear from that, it almost, informing the ZBA or whoever's making that decision,
And we could ask Jamie Rowe, our peer review engineer, to kind of look at it, and as he works in other communities, how do you think this is? Do you think we missed something? So our next step would be to start public hearings, because I don't think we go to town council till we don't want to keep getting public feedback.
No, you want to have a final version of the bylaw before it goes to town council.
Right, okay, I just wanted to make sure. So our next step would be kind of start to schedule public meetings?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's anything huge as far as we've talked about other than the special permit criteria that would really change the face of it. It's more tightening things up. So if you would like to schedule for the second meeting of January, we can probably have something turned around for the first meeting of January for the board to look at and say, all right, we think that this, these special permit criteria, this discussion of net versus gross, this, this language change here all sort of works out, we're good with it, and then have that posted for everyone to look at prior to the meeting on the 26th.
So would we be better to do it on the beginning of the February meeting?
No, I think that have your
They're both
first.
televised now.
They are televised
Yeah.
now? Oh, I thought
That's our
only
goal,
the
that
first one was televised.
both meetings are televised now.
That's our hope, and I think that maybe we can bug the PAC to make sure that they're here for the second meeting.
Okay, cool.
And so if we, do the final edits and approve it on January 12th, then we could, that next day, have the postcards ready to go out to the 72 parcels that say it's on our website, here it is, please come to the meeting on this day, and move forward from there. And mind you, we might not have 1, we might have 5.
I imagine it'll probably be at least 2.
2, right.
And I would think that we would want to have this tightened up and have all input by March.
March for council.
So that we could get the final version to council and schedule the legal public hearing, not the listening session stuff.
Okay. And I'm sorry, public, does the public have any? Come on up, Bob.
Robert Ebersol, 94 Main Street. Thank you for your public process tonight. I've used the word, and we've heard it before, unintended consequences. So my suggestion, as you talked about the 60% transparency, we start taking pictures of some existing buildings. So if I think of the store next door, the front clearly meets 60%. Go around the corner, will it make 60%? The brick wall, so the various things like that, I think it would help for people to visualize what you're trying to do. We've had the charrette, which talked about various other town centers, what's good and what's bad. And now what I'd also want us to do is to look at these and say, here's something that's bad, but it would meet the standard. That's what we really need to get the idea on that part. Because what you've talked about is trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's the trouble with zoning bylaws, is that you can make them 500 pages long and somebody still would get through it. So you got to get to the best process. The other thing that I'd be concerned too is that I appreciate you sending out the postcards to the people, get this on the bylaw, but as Matthew said, 10,000 people in the town, this is the town center. So it's not just the people in the center. I'm concerned that we don't just create something that's going to take care of the outside of the buildings, that we actually look at what the district is. So we can have very nice-looking buildings, but we have parking lots, we've changed the center of town. That's an unintended consequence. Now, the intention is to make it a village district, and I understand that. I'm concerned that somebody's going to change it in a way that was unintended. And so I think we really need to think about, as you look at each section, if you have pictures, if you can do other things like that, this is what we want to look at. And that's starting to give guidance for the approval of a special permit as well. Thank you.
Makes me think of in software security now and in websites and whatnot, they sometimes hire hackers to try to break into their site. I'm thinking like there might be something in the planning world that's equivalent, where we hire people to design bad plans to see if they can get them by our zoning and permit.
I can give you an example of the 60%. If you've got a 10-foot tall story, right, your typical building story is 10 feet, and you've got a 10-foot width, then you've got 6 feet tall, side to side is 60%. So you've got 2 feet below and you've got 2 feet above, and the entire width of it is glassed. It does sound like quite a bit, but considering that a lot of storefronts are going to want 100% of it glass.
Talking about unintended consequences, at one point there was a lot of talk at one of your meetings about the demolition delay bylaw and historic preservation and whether or not you could put something in there to strengthen the demolition delay bylaw, and I don't see anything in here. So I just would like to understand how that conversation went, or if we're just
That was going to be my
because-
question as soon as we finish this one.
Because one of the concerns that I have is that if someone were to buy a historic building in town and then just has to comply with the demolition delay bylaw, then they're going to tear it down and then build a new retail structure, and that is absolutely an unintended consequence.
The Historical Commission has started working on an architectural preservation district. It was something that I had started doing research on. I met with them, sort of talked about it, and they decided they wanted to start writing that bylaw to go to town meeting in concert with the village district.
Okay, that's
Architectural-
it will be in concert, you think?
Yes,
or-
they would both be,
The intent.
they'd both be at the same town meeting. And the architectural preservation district is sort of like taking a local historic district and a demolition delay bylaw and throwing them in a blender and beefing up the demolition delay and sort of taking some of the draconian teeth out of the local historic district. So stuff like paint color and landscaping and all that stuff, they're like, you kind of do whatever you want, but if you're going to knock a building down, do a major renovation or expansion to the exterior, you go to the local to the APD district or the APD commission, and they kind of have final say over if what you're doing meets the standards of the bylaw. So
Okay.
it's really major renovations. You know, if you build a shed or you put new windows in, they don't really get into that. It's if you're going to change the character of the building.
Okay, I just want to, my only comment would be that they need to be in concert, because I would hate to see us adopt this and not adopt the architectural preservation.
Yeah,
Because then I think,
Actually has to go first, but
I
Yeah, and I think
do
that
too.
that would be
I
the
do
intent,
too.
is that they would be, you know, number 12 on the warrant, and this would be number 13, so that if that didn't go,
Then we would
So-
pass over this, or?
that, my understanding is that members of the planning board have expressed their desire to have something similar, and that they would not be supportive of moving forward with the village district without it.
Okay.
So, and I also think that there's enough members of the public who feel the same way, that someone's going to get up and make the motion, and someone's going to support it.
Okay, thank you.
Are you working with the Historic Commission, or are they
I'm
on their
waiting for
own?
an initial draft, and then I was going to submit my comments back to them, and yes, work with them, but they seem to want to take the initiative.
Yeah, well, we had that meeting at the beginning with Ellery, and that they were going to work on their end to match this.
Yeah, I know they don't have any help
I have offered-
specifically assigned to them.
I've offered my services in helping them with that.
Okay.
And Anne Marie Phelps said she was going to take a crack at it.
All right.
They were going to have a discussion about it, and then she would submit what they put together to me, and I'll certainly help them out with it.
I just want to make sure we emphasize to them the need to have it for this?
Oh, I think that they've expressed their concern and having it ready at the same time.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, our goal's always been to partner with them.
So maybe we want to add that to our action file, just so even though it's really more of a keep tabs on type thing. The other thing we talked about was possibly, and this is less critical for getting a town meeting, but doing some kind of sidewalk plan or pedestrian bike.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's going to go to town meeting. That's going to be
okay.
that would be something that the DPW director would. It would be a plan that he puts together and that he's going to implement, probably in conjunction with DOT, because they kind of own Route 2A.
Okay, for the 2A part, right.
So, I mean, we could do all we want up and down Main Street, Lancaster, Leominster, but...
Yeah, well, I guess the thing, so I mean, obviously, I guess so that's okay. The thing I'm wondering, though, in terms of goals, like, that would be probably coming from us. So I don't know, would that be something Jack would,
I will reach out to him.
Okay.
And see, I kind of want to have an idea of where this is.
Yep.
I think I've got that idea now.
It can wait till I guess we can also just make a conscious decision to deal with that. Talk about it. We can talk about it as something as we're passing it, but deal with it if it passes in the spring, I guess. If other people are okay with that. I mean, I don't think it'd destroy things to postpone it and just talk to it. Say, if this passes, we're planning to do whatever. Pedestrian traffic plan or sidewalk plan or whatever.
Multimodal.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great.
Because you kind of want to include everything. You don't want to just plan the sidewalks and say the streets are as they are. You want it to be all sort of
Bike walk, sidewalk.
meld together.
Makes a lot of sense.
I think this is a general question for Mr. Burney, but my question is, if the architectural preservation bylaw is also a general bylaw, so that also has to go through the public hearing process and everything, so I think it's going to be important. You're talking about a public hearing in January. I don't know that we're anywhere near that. And because of deadlines associated with warrant articles, I'm just a little concerned about trying to make these contingent without having had any public vetting yet. And the public hearing process.
Well, a general bylaw doesn't require a public hearing.
It doesn't?
No.
Okay.
General bylaws can go straight to the warrant.
Okay.
And what we're talking about in January is public listening sessions.
Yeah.
With the intent of getting feedback and not having the pressure of doing the public hearing in order to not make the actual public hearing a formality, but kind of make it a formality. Eliminate a lot of we didn't know about this until now at the public hearing. Do some of the, what does everybody think? This is where we're at. This is what the bylaw looks like, to hopefully not have to make corrections at the public hearing.
No, I just, while I appreciate that, the more public input you can
Yes.
get, I think is a good thing.
And I think that's sort of the intent.
Yeah.
And that's what Bob said about the 10th. I would love to mail 10,000 postcards. I can't afford it.
Right.
As I am, I'm doing 73. Yeah,
Right.
Right. But hopefully people will come, but I think it's critical for the people that land it's going to impact, needs to get that letter.
Right.
So they're not coming here saying, I had no idea.
And I think even having something on the public scroll or,
Plenty of time to put in the ledger now.
Right. Right. There's
Yes.
plenty of ways that we can reach out, not just to those individuals,
Exactly.
but to the entire town,
Monday
that we're
will be-
having a public, right.
That Monday will be 2 Lunenburg ledgers that will be able to go.
Exactly. Thank you. So the architectural preservation bylaw doesn't need a public hearing? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, because if they do it as a general bylaw,
Okay.
it eliminates the need for a public hearing.
Okay.
Only zoning bylaws have the public hearing requirement under MGL.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, so I think we're done with the village district. Great job, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Okay, moving on. Do we have, next meeting is January 12th, where we'll have now the final passing of that, and then we'll move forward there. And then January 26th, both here at Town Hall, and we hope to have both of them televised. Any public comment? Any board comment? I have a couple, so.
I guess, I'm not sure if it's a board comment or a member issue. but-
Okay, I say they're the one and the same, so.
Okay. I just have a request for Lunenburg Public Access. When they're televising a meeting and they're videoing the meeting, if there's a delay in the meeting, and they have to go to like a recess or something of that nature, they fill it with audio, I believe, music or something. And when we post Lunenburg Public Access on YouTube, if it has copyrighted material in it that is, we don't have permission to use, they blank the audio. So like if you go to the Zoning Board of Appeals last meeting, there was a recess during it that they played, I assume music, I'm not really sure what they played during it, but now there's no audio, so you can't actually hear the meeting because the entire video is muted as opposed to just the copyright infringement section. So my request would be, can we not use,
Just happy birthday.
can we not use copyrighted material for anything in there? And in cases where we have, can we re-edit them and remove the audio and then repost them on YouTube so that the actual audio for the meeting is there? That's my request.
Okay, thank you. And Joe's in the back room, so I think she heard that, so I don't think we need to write a letter. So they heard you from the back, so that's good. All right, any other comments?
That's a good catch. Though, nice. I mean, it must be awful, 2 hours of silent.
Any other comment?
It's
Let's-
2 hours of reading lips.
Any other comment, board issue? All right, Matt, you good?
I'm good.
Okay, I just want to, Lunenburg Flower and Gifts, new business just opened, so we always want to congratulate new people and keep that economic development coming. So it's right here in the Little Village District. So Lunenburg Flowers and Gifts, right here, right next door to Elena's. So you can grab a nice bouquet of flowers and a bottle of wine and have a good night for yourself. It's the holiday season. I wish everybody a happy, healthy holiday season. Be kind to one another. Have a great 2 weeks, and we'll see you at the beginning of the year. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.